The MC of this story is at first glance an ordinary guy from a noble family, but the first impression of him is very deceptive. In fact, he has a unique ability to use the power and skills he gains in an online game in the real world. In other words, he can get stronger just by playing games. His successes do not go unnoticed, and his father is surprised by his progress, but at the same time his older brother and stepmother are very jealous of him. They are ready to do anything to take our hero out of the equation. But will they succeed? Let's find out. This is the advanced age of magic, and the protagonist of this story is living on a planet called Rondell, which consists of 4 continents and 20 counties. Though it is a highly developed civilization, but it still holds social differences between royals, nobles, and commoners. Besides magic, this world also contains a treasure called curiosity, left by the greatest archduke to ever exist on this planet. He doesn't have any child or successor, so he leaves curiosity, which contains all of his knowledge and power. After learning this, the world goes crazy for it, while searching everywhere. But in the end, no one ever finds a trace of it. So, our story begins 20 years later with Adrian Lawrence discovering the curiosity of Manuel Lucas. In 2007, Adrian Lawrence is considered a genius as the second son of Viscount Lawrence, who is adored and admired by everyone. He is born as a noble in this age of magic, with his memory intact as Kim Minky, who had died in a truck accident while serving in the military. Now, he lives the life of the son of the Viscount who owns this estate. Though it is a little disheartening at first for him, but he takes advantage of the experience of his past life and immerses himself in study to improve himself. Seeing this aspect of his personality, everyone praises him for his quick learning, and his father has great expectations of him. Despite this, he can't fully apply his past life experience to his current life, as he now lives in Rondell, a world more advanced than the 21st century of Earth. So, he decides to study hard to prove himself as a genius. But the thing is that he is not admired by everyone, as someone tries to poison him when he is only 7 years old. With immediate treatment, he is saved. This incident worries everyone about who could do such a thing, but someone in the house hates him, that is his stepmother, named as Anna Lawrence. She belongs to a noble family, while his mother was a commoner. Having his father's attention makes Anna hate him, especially with the commoner blood in his veins. After he wakes up, he is frustrated with the backward political system of the country, as everyone knows Anna could be a major suspect, but everyone, including his father, turns a blind eye to the incident. So, in order to protect himself, he stops pretending to be a genius. 10 years have passed, and now it is 2019. Our boy is seen entering the convenience store while looking for something. Upon seeing him, the shopkeeper informs her colleague that he is the second son of the Viscount, despite being dressed like a commoner. He then turns to the counter and asks for the Chronicle online point cards. She informs him that he will find them on the counter. He replies that he is going to purchase all of them. After he leaves the store, the salesgirl informs her colleague to be careful with nobles because they could get into trouble with them, which prompts him to protest that this rich guy could just send his servant instead. While watching him leave, she mentions to him about his addiction to the game and that he comes to the store every 3 to 4 times a month because of it. Meanwhile, as our guy is checking his card points, he is informed about the arrival of Sir Cedric at the manor, which changes his expression to a grumpy one. Later, he returns to the manor and is greeted by his mother, Sylvia Lawrence. They are interrupted by Adrian's half-brother, Cedric Lawrence, who tries to remind him that he should act like a noble because going out without a vehicle is ruining their reputation. He looks at his brother, who is a bit of a playboy and couldn't take care of himself if he weren't a noble, now lecturing him about reputation. But he knows retorts won't work, as their arguments never end. So, he says he'll be careful next time in order to end the matter. However, his half-brother isn't satisfied with his answer and taunts him, while saying that he's pretend to look like commoner because of the common blood in his veins. To change the topic, he asks about the reason for Cedric's arrival. With a nervous expression, Cedric replies that he came after hearing that Adrian is going to take charge of the business. Basically, the aristocratic system in this world is a mix of money and politics. In this way, his family runs many businesses, and Par's distribution is one of them, which our boy is supposed to take charge of. But his half-brother is so greedy that he comes immediately after learning the news. He tells him that he has already refused to take charge, which satisfies his brother. Then Adrian asks him to leave, as he needs to get back to his points card for his game. This also pleases his stepbrother, who encourages him to keep playing before leaving. Then his mother turns to him with concern, but he tries to console her, saying he is all right. He looks at his brother and remembers his decision to not get involved with him after the poisoning incident. That is the reason he has turned from a genius into a gaming addict. He then goes to his room for another game and informs his servant not to disturb him unless it's something urgent. After the poison incident, he decides to avoid attracting unnecessary attention and limits his interactions with others. This causes his father to become indifferent toward him, which ensures he doesn't face dangerous, life-threatening situations again. Meanwhile, he also gains the reputation of a gaming addict over these 10 years. People even gossip that his game addiction is the result of being poisoned. So, he continues living this way but remains cautious because Anna controls the servants in the castle, and he could still be in danger because of her. As he is about to enter his room, he overhears someone say that he plays games to escape reality. While wearing his game equipment, he thinks about that comment and smirks, because that's not the case. His game informs him that he has cleared stage 1 of curiosity, and now his body is in synchronicity with virtual reality. On the other hand, he feels quite smug, thinking that if anyone wants to keep an eye on him, they should track his life in virtual world as well. Because of the ability he gains in the game, he can use his gaming in reality too. Let's get back to 10 years ago to dive deep into the story of our guy. When he researched about the curiosity of Manuel Lucas in the Royal Academy, he is shocked to find an English word, Y, on the crest of the House of Lucas. It makes him think that Lucas might be from another world, like him, but he shakes off the thought, while knowing that he needs to research more before concluding anything. He then researches more about Lucas and discovers his last words, where he expresses a wish to walk on the beaches of California. Though he doesn't know much about this place, he decides to investigate further, and after some investigation, he concludes that Lucas must be from Earth. Then, his interest in the Archmage grows, and he finds more evidence supporting his theory. For example, Lucas has created numbers of inventions with the names of Washington and Hollywood. So, he uses his Earth knowledge and dives deeper into the mystery, while chasing his curiosity. Later, he finally gets this legendary curiosity in the virtual reality. At that moment, he thinks that now his life will be a lot easier since he has acquired the legendary weapon. But then, he learns about the real hardships of obtaining something like this. Because this virtual world is opposite to typical games, crafted in a way that synchronizes reality with the game for someone who acquires the curiosity. For example, since our guy has the curiosity, he feels pain if he gets injured during combat, which makes him reluctant to fight. Then he looks at the goblin and kills it with a critical hit, while raising his level to 10. After clearing the first stage of the game, he is taken to the secret space by Great Arceal for his next stage. For a while, the process of synchronizing his body with the game takes place, and his character initializes. Later, he sees a gate in front of him. His system asks him whether he would like to go to the second floor of Manuel Lucas's magic tower, to which he agrees. When the process finishes, and our boy finds himself in the library, which is quite the opposite of the first floor, where there is nothing significant. Then he looks around and finds a treasure box in which he receives 5 billion roots, which he can either deposit in his account and receive in online currency. He is glad to finally have some rewards, but he looks forward to the real value of the curiosity. Afterwards, his system informs him about the creation of the circle in which he gets the job of a mage. His system warns him not to shut down while his synchronization process is going on. Otherwise, it will take a bit. When the creation circle is completed, our boy feels the mana inside him for the first time. Though it is not an easy process for him, but this is the price he has to pay to synchronize his body with the game. Upon the completion of the circle, he decides to learn a technique in order to use his mana. Then he looks at the books, which must be the inheritance of Lucas. As soon as he touches the shelf of books, a question pops up: whether he'd like to search for information. He likes this technology as it can help him go through the information easily, just as he expected from someone like Lucas. But because of it, our boy suffers from a severe headache due to acquiring a large number of principles and theories in his head from Lucas's library. Upon learning several skills from the books, he takes out the last book, titled as Circle Concealment Technique. With this book, he can hide his mana circle from everyone below the level of 7th circle or higher level knights and mages. He needs this skill to hide his mana from his stepmother and brother. When he acquires the knowledge from the book, he again experiences immense pain. However, he decides to leave as there is nothing important left for him to learn. Afterward, he falls down, hellishly tired from all the work, but he is doing it to achieve a peaceful and safe life for his mother and himself. The next day, in the training ground, his mentor and guide, Bice, comments on his good stamina after experiencing a sword fight with him. He also expresses his surprise when Adrian approaches him for sword training. He makes an excuse that his body is feeling numb, so he decides to do some exercise. In reality, he is having difficulty in the gaming world because of his lack of movement, so he starts training in real life as well. Not only this, he feels quite healthier in real life upon the completion of his mana circle. It means if his stats increase in the game, it will affect his real life as well, and he can use the skills which he acquires in the game. More importantly, he can hide his mana from the knights who can detect mana. He then looks at Bice and makes an excuse, while saying that he looks excited because he got an item in a game, which prompts a disgusted reaction from everyone around them. The rude remark offends his guide, and he's about to respond, but our boy stops him. In reality, he's just faking it to look pathetic in order to avoid his stepmother and her son. Later, he is seen entering the game, while having already checked his stats in real life. First, he decides to spend some money to enhance his skills and opens the store's product list. Even in the game world, money is power. He purchases several kits that boost his mana and experience points by 30% and give him protection from one attack. He's content with purchasing these useful items, which he couldn't use before because of his lower level. At that, he spots an item called Summoning Supporter. He contemplates whether he should purchase it because of his lower stamina. He is weak fighter. Even though his summon will share some part of his experience, he can also gain experience as well. So, he decides to take off and choose the best tanker for himself. After purchasing a number of supporters for 30 billion won, he is quite disappointed that he doesn't get the supporter of his liking. Then he spots another supporter, this time with potential. Arcia of the Heavens is a level 250 warrior who specializes in defense. Upon checking her description, he is happy to finally get a decent supporter and presses the register button. But the system warns him that once he registers with her, he won't be able to change his supporter, which leaves him baffled as he thought he could easily change them. The system explains that he can't change them because of having a curiosity. He expects this kind of restriction, so he decides to register with her. Then there is a bright light, its effect stronger than the others. Following the light, Arcia of the Heavens stands in front of him with a blank expression. He notices her expressionless face but shrugs it off and decides to move ahead in order to level up. Therefore, she is seen protecting him with a magic missile, which really impresses him. With her help, he is already at level 20. At which point the system asks if he would like to acquire a magic book and technique book. On the other hand, he is satisfied with her defense support despite losing some of his experience to her. Then he realizes he has been playing for 25 hours and decides to practice magic in real life, as it is getting easier because of his mana circle. So he logs out. Afterwards, he gets up in his bed and decides to rest before going for some training. Suddenly, he senses someone in his room and turns toward that presence. He is terrified to see Arcia of the Heavens standing in front of him in real life. He instantly asks about her identity, to which she answers that she is his supporter. He clarifies that he wants to know her method to maintain herself in real life. Now she understands his question, which makes him think she must chest perspective of reality of virtual world. She explains that she is a homunculus, that is an android with the same qualities as Arcia of the Heavens in the game, which is created by Lucas. This makes him regret not choosing a better supporter instead of a tanker. However, what is done, and he turns to her, asking whether she can maintain her game stats in real life as well. She confirms it, explaining that she has restored her stats and that now they are equal to those of a Grandmaster in real life. This information startles him, as Grandmasters are usually Class 8th Circle mages and considered the strongest on the continent. In his own state, only 8 Grandmasters have ever existed. At this moment, he is truly impressed by Lucas's effort. He is even satisfied to have such a high-level supporter who will only follow his orders. But now, he's stuck with the problem of how to hide her. He asks her to go back to where she came from. She replies that it's not possible unless he takes her to the maintenance garage. He realizes he's stuck with her and asks if she can use stealth or mana concealment techniques. She answers that she can only do mana concealment. He then orders her to do it immediately. After she does, the shield over her armor disappears, and he is satisfied that her high level of mana won't be sensed by the knights. After thinking about what to do with her, he's left with no choice but to ruin his reputation a little more. The next day, rumors spread around the manor about Adrian having a woman with him. People even call him shameless for being seen everywhere with her. Meanwhile, his mother is excited about his potential marriage. On the other hand, unfazed by the rumors, Adrian is focused on leveling up in the game. Now at level 30, he is preparing to clear stage 2 of the Curiosity quest. They head to the first floor of the Magic Tower. Meanwhile, he asks about the whereabouts of her body in real life. She explains that she will appear to be asleep in front of others, but in reality, her surveillance mode will be activated for his protection. Satisfied with her answer, he asks if she would be able to alert him in case of an emergency. Just as she is about to respond, they hear the sound of heavy footsteps on the floor, and an orc warrior appears named as Kantz, whom they need to defeat to clear stage 2 of the Curiosity quest. Before going ahead, his system warns him not to use these items, which can cause high damage like bombs and scrolls, in order for him to get stronger in combat. He now understands that it will be a difficult challenge to conquer this orc. Then he orders Arcia to take her position, which she complies with. She defends him from the orc's attack, while leaving it startled. He then uses a magic missile to pierce one of its eyes, landing a critical hit. He's quite smug at this point because he has the protection of the items he recently purchased, which also enhance the power of his attack, equaling the first circle. He's confident that he can kill the monster with one hit. However, his thoughts are interrupted when he sees that Arcia is having a hard time protecting him from the monster, which has gone berserk. While looking at the orc, he concludes that he'd be done for if this monster even touched him with its power level. But he's determined to finish it off, as he's already tasted death once. So, he attacks it with a magic circle, while throwing the monster on its front. He immediately orders Arcia to stop it from getting up while he finishes it off. Then, he keeps attacking for a while until its HP is down to 50, but it's still alive and gets up again, while being enraged. But, our player is ready and finishes it off with a magic missile. After defeating the orc, he clears the second stage of the Curiosity Dungeon, which allows him to ascend to the third floor of the Magic Tower. While he's immersed in the gaming world, his stepmother approaches his father in his office. She assumes he's standing there alone because Adrian dared to bring a common girl into the castle. He shows her the letter, which is a convocation order from the local forces. According to the letter, he is required to join the upcoming war with 5 vanguards, 50 knights, and 1,000 soldiers, which leaves his wife shocked. Terrified for her son, she slyly suggests that he send Adrian, because he also needs to start taking responsibility for the house. At this, his father raises a question, while asking whether she now wants to use the son he neglected his whole life. She protests, saying that the said son has still enjoyed the privileges of being a noble. On the contrary, Sir Lawrence doesn't buy her reasoning and clarifies that while Cedric will be his successor, as she wished, he will make his own decisions. He firmly tells her that, as per her wishes, he will send Adrian to the battlefield, but he intends to give Adrian and his mother total freedom, free from her surveillance and spying, once he returns. The next day, Adrian is found training with Bice, who praises him for how much he's improved in just a few days. Meanwhile, Bice comments that, at this rate, Adrian would have become a great knight had he learned swordsmanship at an earlier age. On the other hand, he is also satisfied with his improvement as he cleared the second stage. Besides, there's a reward in the form of money and the second circle. He also receives a subspace where he can store and hide numerous items, along with other potential uses. He's pleased with his progress so far, feeling confident that with his current stats and physical strength, he can excel as both a mage and a knight. Then, he turns to Bice for further training, but they are interrupted by a servant who informs him that his father has called for him at Lawrence Castle. A few days later, it is a scene inside Lawrence Castle where Cedric protests after hearing the news that Adrian is going to the battlefield to represent the family instead of him. His father replies that, as the successor and precious son of the family, they can't risk losing Cedric, which prompts a protest from his mother, questioning whether the MC isn't also a precious son. His father responds that Cedric is important because he is the heir. On the other hand, the MC is quite annoyed with his father, but decides to use the situation to his advantage. The battlefield will provide him with an opportunity to avoid being bothered by anyone and escape his stepmother's surveillance. So, he accepts the offer, for which his father is grateful. However, his stepbrother is not okay with it and warns him not to dishonor their family. Annoyed by his brother's immaturity, he assures him that he will do his best anyway. Then his father tells him to have a conversation with him alone, as he has even shooed the guards away. His father informs him that once he comes back from the battlefield, he will move to Crown Land with his mother, where they will have complete freedom. It is kind of a reward for him going to battle instead of his precious son. This information makes him think about whether his stepmother really allows it. Besides, he is still doubtful about his father's intentions, but tells him that he will think about it. At that, his father raises the question of whether he trusts him. He counters that he is saying it because he needs to come back alive in order to accept his father's offer. His father then hands him 2 rings. He informs him that these rings are artifacts with the magic of 5th or 7th class shield magic, which will be helpful for him on the battlefield. He is a little startled to receive such a precious gift from his father, but accepts it anyway. When he turns, he is a little startled to see his stepfamily there. His father replies that he can trust him regarding his mother. He looks at his father and thinks that even when he feels resentment and disappointment towards his father at different times in his life, the reality is, he is the only one he can trust. So he asks his father to take care of his mother before leaving. The following night, Sir Lawrence is seen quite tense in his room as he uses a pain relief. Then he gets up while thinking about his second son. It is revealed that he knows all along that the personality of our MC, since he was poisoned, is just a pretense. Meanwhile, the aforementioned MC is consoling his mother, who is worried about whether he will get injured on the battlefield. At that, he states that it will be good because that way he punishes his sinner, which leaves his mother stunned. She warns him that maybe someone is listening to them, but he consoles her by saying that he left Arisa to guard the door. He then comforts her by saying that she would just wait for a little while until their bad days are over. 2 days have passed, and now it is the day to dispatch the soldiers of Lawrence, and everyone is inside the levitating train. While in the conference room of the Vanguard, one of the general staff, Heyman, points out the presence of Arisa with him. At that, he shamelessly states that they must know about her. Heyman nervously remarks that the battlefield is not a place to bring one's lover. Our guy responds firmly that matters regarding Arisa won't be discussed, and if they have a problem with her, they can pretend she is his secretary, which everyone accepts. Meanwhile, he thinks that now she can protect him because of her higher level, and that's why he brings her here. Besides, he has also spent millions of cash to pass the 3rd stage in the game in order to become stronger in real life. Not only that, with this, he receives rewards of money as well as 3 bottles of elixir, the panacea, which he keeps in his subspace. Then he decides to level up more, as he doesn't have much time to waste, and gets up from his place. His subordinate asks about it, and he replies that he is going to play a game, which raises a murmur among his subordinates about his reputation as a game addict. Meanwhile, one of them is daring enough to say it loudly. That person is a vanguard named Sir Dalton. Vanguards are the top dogs in the evaluating country's military power, who are armed with special swords and armor. Dalton daringly asks him how he can ruin his reputation among his soldiers. He goes so far as to call Arisa pretty, but before he can utter another word about her, he is interrupted by his senior, the Vanguard and Vice Captain of the Order, William. He apologizes to Adrian on behalf of his subordinate. While looking at William, he easily detects his cold eyes despite his polite behavior. He can also sense William's dislike towards him, but he shrugs it off, as he is used to such behavior, and leaves the meeting room, telling them to inform him when they arrive. After a while, both of our main characters are in the game, fighting a formidable dragon with salamander tears. This item is quite expensive, but he doesn't mind the cost because of its ability to inflict permanent damage on his opponent. After defeating the dragon, he reaches level 80, and he will then be transferred to the secret space of the 4th stage. As soon as they enter stage 4, they face a demi-lich emerging with 32,000 HP. While looking at the horrified face of his opponent, he is determined to clear the 4th stage before they reach the Western Command to fight a war. While observing this news lich monster, he concludes that defeating this monster will be a piece of cake because it is slow and stupid, unlike typical lich monsters, who are unfathomable enemies. Before they are ready to attack, the lich monster attacks them with Stone Curse and Icicle Lance simultaneously. Before Arja can protect our dude, he decides to dodge it himself, but he is unable to do it, and it hits his shoulder, which causes immense pain. On the other hand, the monster laughs at his misery, which reminds him of his half-brother. It enrages him, so he gets up with new determination. The monster is also ready and attacks them with a fireball, which they dodge swiftly while rushing towards it. Before attacking the monster, our boy reminds his support that she has to stop it from attacking them again. Meanwhile, he pushes his equipment, which has the attribute of light, which is the weakness of the lich monster. Then he attacks the monster, which causes it great damage, and it wonders why our dude is attacking it physically with a staff despite being a mage. In order to protect itself, the monster creates a firewall in front of it. But our boy is powerful enough to go through the firewall and gets it. Following the defeat of the monster, he finally clears stage 4 of the quest. However, as soon as it ends, the effect of adrenaline ends, and pain begins to run through our hero. To heal him, Arzia immediately opens his inventory and takes out the elixir. She makes him drink it. While looking at her, he thinks how amazing she is to do this on his behalf, even being a support. Afterwards, he enters stage 5 of the Curiosity. They are excited to see the rewards in which our boy receives 500 billion roots as well as all-seeing glasses. While looking at his new gift, he assumes it must be special thing as it is from Lucas. Then he checks its description, and these glasses are indeed special. With its help, he can check the attributes of any object and creature, as well as detect lies. Not only this, he can see far beyond kilometers away. He is quite glad to receive it, as it is so helpful for him to distinguish the enemies from allies. He also enters into the 4th circle after clearing the 4th stage. Later, they reached at the Western Command. But again, there are numbers of murmurs regarding him being poisoned and becoming crazy. Upon listening to it, he confirms to these commanders that he indeed is that fool who poisoned. At that, they try to explain that they don't believe in rumors about him. Then both of them introduce themselves as Viscount Evans, who is the Chief of Operations at the Army, and Viscount Miller, who is the Support Chief of Staff of the local army. They check whether he has brought the essential vanguards and knights that need to be brought. At that, he comments that he has brought thousands of soldiers as well. They reply that they don't need soldiers. They assume they can end the war with vanguards only. Their statement makes him think that he is speaking the truth. Basically, this system of vanguards is made by Lucas, and they are so powerful that they can only be defeated by 7th Circle or higher level mages. One of the Viscounts informs our dude that he is going to work under Count Otis, as his army is organized as the 2nd Independent Brigade of Division 3, which is under Corps 2. He greets them and leaves the place. Then he is in front of his troop, to whom he informs that they will be organized as the Independent Brigade 232. With that, they go to their next destination. After a week, once he enters his division, he gets to know that his commander is only going to communicate with them through teleportation until the beginning of the war. So he takes advantage of Count Otis's absence in order to level up in the game. While they are playing the game, his support informs him that someone has entered their room. He immediately gets up and sees that it is Dalton, who is stopped by Arcia and baffled by her strength. Instead of going ahead, he decides to check his stats through the all-seeing glass and finds his status is lustful, which makes him angry. Anyway, he goes to him about his reason for coming there. Dalton explains that he came to check on him as his guide since he is playing a game for a longer time. Before Dalton can complain about Arcia, he slaps him hard, which raises a protest from him. Our guy adopts the posture of an arrogant boss and asks sternly whether his reason for coming here is that he wants to assassinate him, because he already told him not to disturb him. This statement prompts another protest from the villain, who reminds him that he is a vanguard. Then our guy turns to Arcia for the explanation. She replies that he tried to separate her from him. At that, Dalton makes up an excuse that he is just framed up and asks him whether he believes in an unknown woman above the vanguard. Now Adrian understands the dread of the situation because he knows the knights will be in favor of Dalton. However, he still wants to teach Dalton a lesson under the excuse of mutiny and raises his daggers at him. Meanwhile, everyone tries to calm him down. He thinks that he didn't have much choice back in his palace, but now he can show others his true self. On the other side of Division, someone informs Williams that he is being called by Adrian because he is going to execute Dalton. He is a little confused about the situation and doesn't like our guy ordering him around. Anyway, he goes to his room, and as soon as he enters, a dagger reeking of blood is thrown at him, which he grabs in midair. Our guy shows him the anger of coming late. Then, looking at the condition of Dalton, he asks about the situation. Our guy angrily tells him about his knights harassing Arcia, to which he immediately apologizes. With a firm tone, our boy replies that Sir Dalton, along with these knights, will be stripped of their positions and go to lockup without any objection. Meanwhile, Sir William doesn't protest a thing. Then he leaves the place while making an excuse that it reeks of blood, so it should be cleaned. While looking at his back, the vice captain observes the true nature of our hero and grins while thinking about how hard it is for him to surpass this nature. After a while, both of our main characters are fighting against Zenith, the fallen knight. Now, after clearing the 120th level, our guy only needs to defeat this knight to reach the 6th floor of the magic tower. Zenith tries to attack him, but it is blocked by the tanker, who also hits him with her shield. Behind her, our MC is ready with his staff and attacks him with magic. After defeating this knight, he finally enters the 6th floor. As a reward, he doesn't only receive 2 trillion roots, but a number of pieces of equipment as well. While observing the equipment, he concludes that the rest, except for the staff and robe, must fit Arcia, who is a warrior. He is glad to have more and more equipment, especially from Lucas, who never gives anything ordinary. Before he can check the specifics of these equipment, a knight interrupts them, informing him that they have sensed strange energy. He reasons that he's just checking some artifacts, which dismisses the knight. Then, he takes out the first item, an Istro arming sword. He knows this must be something a vanguard can use temporarily upon charging their aura. Since aura can't be artificially created, the vanguard's aura is amplified in their equipment. To see its features, he takes out equipment meant for his use as a mage. He is amazed to see that both his staff and robe have the ability to store mana. Now he understands why everyone is crazy about Lucas's technology. 2 weeks have passed since our guy has been waiting for the war to break out, but they are still just in a standoff. The people around him become more conscious of him and don't dare to badmouth him like before, after the incident with Dalton, which is good for him. Another strange thing is that William becomes quite friendly with him, whose stature is now curious and guarded. Anyway, he is content since he has much time to play games without interruption. Then, he checks Arcia's status and is amazed to see that she is happy. He wonders whether the reason behind her happiness is that he brought her for a walk like a puppy. While observing this, he concludes that even homunculi can have emotions and preferences. When they go a little further, her status changes to very happy. At that, he expresses that they will go for walks more often, to which she complies. Then they are stopped by Lopez, who asks whether he would like to join him for a drink. He checks Lopez's status, which shows awkwardness and embarrassment. Seeing the knight snickering behind him, he realizes that someone must have dared Lopez to ask him. He starts to walk off, saying he's not interested. Suddenly, he stops and turns to him, asking about his reason for joining the Knights. When Lopez doesn't answer, he checks his status and is amazed to see him possessing multiple abilities and a rare special skill, which is something he has only seen in Arcia. He realizes that this person is wasting his potential in knighthood. Before walking ahead, he comments that Lopez has the potential to become a great mage. After a while, when he is in his room, he can't stop thinking about Lopez, who could become a great magic swordsman if he used magic with the force of his sword like a vanguard. He knows talent is not a guarantee of success, but he somehow wants Lopez on his side. However, he can't make it happen because Lopez is a knight of Otis's territory, and he can't be transferred without permission. At that, he considers bribing Otis for this. He doesn't yet know exactly how he will use Lopez's abilities, but he needs them to increase his power and influence. While thinking that, he gets up and happily claims that he's going to get busy, as he now knows his next course of action. After a while, Lopez is shown going somewhere while pondering Adrian's words, because he himself thinks it's better to be a mage than a knight. He also thinks about our guy and the bad rumors associated with him. Meanwhile, he's thinking about being in front of the office of his commander, who had summoned him. He asks for his lord while considering how terrifying it will be to realize that Adrian might not be the person his rumors present him to be. Then, he's in front of his commander Otis and is amazed to find our dude there as well. Otis introduces Adrian and drops a bomb on the Knights. Adrian is going to be his new master from now on, which truly stuns him. On the other hand, Adrian is thinking about his life back in Korea and a particular match between China and South Korea. The comments regarding this match taught him a lesson, that there are many talented people in the world, but all of them went to waste because there wasn't a system to bring out their potential. He looks at the potential people he's going to hire, now able to see their talents through his all-seeing glasses. He sees their high abilities but realizes they're wasting away in the wrong professions. At that moment, a maid from a neighboring army, Linda Noah, approaches him with an uncertain question about whether she can really become a mage, since she got a negative test result. He responds that the equipment must be faulty, all while thinking about the huge payment he had to make to her master to recruit her after detecting her high mana, learning, and intelligence abilities. Afterwards, Barbaro Anderson, who has high aura and physical abilities, consoles Linda, while telling her she just needs to follow orders like before. Beside him, another person, Nickel Brown, who is also a miner, is talented in swordsmanship. While looking at them, our MC thinks that Barbaro's reason for following him might be because he saved him from a life of labor. Then they head to a luxury outfit store in Crown Land to try on some clothes. The three of them look a little scared, intimidated by the luxury around them. Meanwhile, a man named Eric Jones, who has a special skill in speech and high abilities in political and administrative work, arrives in a changed outfit, hoping to impress his new master. On the other hand, our MC is far more interested in Eric's abilities. He then tells them to choose anything that suits them, regardless of the price. He also reprimands Lopez for picking something soldier-like. His next course of action is to give them customized training at the residence outside the military base, so they need to change their clothes and equipment to adapt to their new environment. After a while, everyone is stunned to see the luxurious building they're going to live in from now on. He then tells them the specifics of their salary and down payment, along with the presence of a butler and maid, so they can focus entirely on their training. Hearing this, all of them salute him and promise to live up to his expectations. He responds that doing so will bring them even more rewards, while also reminding them that they can take it slow if needed. However, at the end, he coldly reminds them that laziness and careless talk won't be tolerated, to which they all comply. He also offers a tempting deal that if anyone tries to bribe them, they'll be paid double by him if they report it. It's his way of ensuring their loyalty, as he wants the place to be filled with talented individuals. On the surface, it looks like he's wasting money, but in reality, he's investing in human resources. Then he walks ahead, wondering if he should find a safer place for his mother when the time comes to face his stepmother and brother. But suddenly, he senses someone following him. But Arja immediately attacks him. He recalls Cedric's warning after learning about him recruiting common people, that he should stay around those of their family's status. This conversation makes him suspect that Cedric is keeping an eye on him. The follower tries to feign innocence, but he firmly states that he arrived through multiple teleportations and ensured he wasn't being followed, yet the person is still trailing him. Upon hearing this person's expression turns sly. At that, Arisa throws him hard to the floor, then she increases her aura in order to warn him if he doesn't confess that he's working for Cedric. Realizing that she is an aura master, he agrees to cooperate with them. He tells them that he used Cedric's acquaintances in the teleportation department to trace him. Through his all-seeing glasses, he can see that he is telling the truth, so he decides to test him to see if he's lying. He states that even though he is following Cedric's orders, this person is not eager to work against our sly MC. In conclusion, he expresses that he was ready to go against his master, and this statement truly stuns the stalker. Our boy then doesn't threaten him, instead telling him to work for him. For this purpose, he instructs him to report to Cedric that our dear hero isn't doing anything besides playing a game, to which he readily agrees. Meanwhile, Cedric is quite tense to learn that one of his men, Sir Metz, who was spying on Adrian on his behalf. He's caught in his half-brother's room and is now in jail. Cedric feels the pressure, knowing he's going to be scolded by his father for ignoring his instruction to leave Adrian alone. He instructs his men to keep an eye on his half-brother while he tries to calm his father down. The person he's talking about is none other than the same individual or guy has recruited on his side. Additionally, he has also imprisoned several of his brother's spies on various charges to prevent them from keeping tabs on him. Meanwhile, our guy has recruited more talented individuals, now total 20 in quantity. He leaves the management of this place to Eric, who is also a half-elf and a former administrative officer in the Elysia Nation. Now, Adrian is playing a game to work hard like his subordinates, and has reached level 159. One more level, and he can complete his 6th circle. Suddenly, his happy expression turns tense when he reads the notification about an emergency, as the division commander has ordered an immediate convocation. He now understands that this emergency likely means war has broken out, as he is at the front line. He immediately steps outside and asks about the situation. His subordinate informs him that the Crosan Empire's flying fortress has crossed their borders, and they are currently trying to gather more details. Now, he understands the reason behind the uneasy peace is that the enemy is planning this attack. After a while, they are in a meeting in the commander's office. Otis informs them about their current situation, that they will remain there until the local army has positioned the levitating troops in case of an emergency. He warns them not to teleport to the space coordinates for border, as the entire front line will soon be invaded by the Crosan Empire. He adds that they will only use transceivers for communication within the unit except the highest-ranking officers, while subtly warning to our hero about using personal devices. At the end of the meeting, he warns everyone to stay alert, as they are at war. Despite Count Otis's warnings, our guy continues playing the game and reaches level 160 after defeating an ogre. He is glad to finally obtain the 6th circle, as he is still playing the game without shame. He recalls Haemon's warning, who tried to stop him, but our hero didn't listen. Instead left the charge to him. He knows it is more important for him. Then he looks at the 10 trillion roots he has obtained upon clearing the 6th stage. Not only that, but he also finds another reward from this stage in the form of a regal supersonic eagle, which is now his new support. This astonishes him, as he doesn't know such features exist. Additionally, he can't find any information regarding the bird. When he tries to see its abilities with his glasses, he finds none. He then goes outside to find his new pet but is puzzled to see peace all around, as the giant blackbird is nowhere in sight. They look around to locate the supersonic eagle, and Arisa points to a spot where there is a small tornado of air, which indicates that this is where his new support is. Everyone around them warns him to be cautious of the bird. Despite their warnings, he approaches and inspects the bird. He discovers that this creature is a chimera of a dragon and an eagle, possessing only one skill, which is a shared vision. He starts to pat the bird, while thinking that he might level up in the game to help the bird improve alongside him. He is also glad to get the shared vision skill with this eagle, which is like gaining a personal supersonic reconnaissance plane. On the other side, everyone is nervous to see him easily petting the giant bird, and they ask about the situation. To amend his unknown mistakes, he starts to show adoration for the bird in a dramatic way. Amazingly, the bird is also happy to get the attention of its master. Meanwhile, people are stunned to see this display of bonding, as the eagle is not attacking our MC. After a while, he is checking the update on the war, which has broken through the whole western border instead of staying at the borderline. He has also sent his troops to fight the enemy. However, he is disappointed not to be able to play his game because of cut of communications. Someone informs him about the approaching platoon of vanguard from his enemy empire. He calmly orders William to dispatch his platoon of vanguard while warning them to stay in formation. While calmly taking his tea, he is certain he won't die because he has already faced every kind of monster in the game. Everyone is astonished to see him so calm. Suddenly, he senses the enemy vanguard is going to attack them with his all-seeing glasses. Without wasting a second, he immediately orders the 2nd Battalion to deploy the energy shield around them. After the deployment of the energy shield, they wait with anticipation for the attack, which happens in the form of explosions. Adrian realizes why the vanguard is only defeated by the 7th circle or higher. His subordinate informs him that they are out of the energy shield for 90 seconds until it will recharge again. Meanwhile, he thinks about how amazing Lucas is to create something like this for knights. But he should create such weapons for mages as well. However, he shakes off this thought because no matter what, he will soon reach the 9th level circle after completing the highest level in the game. Besides, he has Arisa as well, who is equal to the 8th level circle already. Now his subordinate praises him for his quick thinking, which saved them from the vanguard attack, but he shrugs it off because he is nonchalant about their flattery. Then he checks the situation of the war and concludes that the enemy force has the same size as their division, but they face a problem in the form of the size of their fortress. Since they might have created them for invasion purposes, they are much smaller in size. Observing everything, he comments that the enemy must be using this fortress for the first time, as he hasn't found any information regarding it. Basically, flying fortresses are like the vanguard that bombard from the sky like a massive vanguard and attack the enemy in the battle going on the ground. Suddenly, he sees something dispatched from the enemy's flying fortress, which is clearly a weapon and a bridge. However, the people around them start to laugh, thinking it is broken down. On the other side, our hero, who can see everything with his glasses, feels quite tense. He senses the overloading of mana but doesn't understand it at first. Suddenly, he realizes what it is and turns to his men. He orders them to inform his vanguards that the flying fortress is launching a suicide attack. With that, they hear the sound of an explosion. Then there's a little panic as everyone realizes the seriousness of his statement. Everyone has their own opinions regarding the situation, and one of them attacks the flying fortress with anti-aircraft rounds. Seeing this, our brigade orders everyone to target the fortress with every weapon they have before it crashes on them. Then he deploys the great shield around them, which stops the flying fortress from crashing into them. Next, he worries about their own flying fortress. He looks at the enemy fortress and is glad to see that they are going to retreat. Otherwise, there would be a huge massacre if the fortress crashed into them. Then he orders his subordinate to check in with their vanguard while leaving the area. Later, he is shown getting praise from Count Otis about his feat of saving everyone, which he tries to shrugs off. Despite the nervousness of our player, Count still praises him because it is only him who noticed something off with the fortress and saved their unit, unlike other battlefields which have seen the same situation. He also adds that he is going to get a huge reward for his feat. To listen to this, he smiles while thinking that Count Otis is not bad for giving credit and ensuring his rewards as his superior, which is not the case in many. Then Count Otis changes the topic and mentions the rumor about him taming a giant eagle and his bonding with him. He nervously replies that he just has been taking care of it because it can understand him. Count Otis reasons that it is what people call bonding. Someone interjects and informs him about the black eagle who is called Altair and has an attribute of strong mana, which can fly around 4,000 kilometers. Our guy replies that he doesn't know about it. To boost his knowledge, this person adds about the loyalty of these rare birds. However, our guy is quite relieved for Lucas to make something based on real-life species. Otherwise, it would be problematic for him. At that point, Count Otis makes a joke about this bird being a dog. To see his good mood, he subtly asks whether he can play a game now, which permission he is granted. Let's look at the situation of the vanguard, who are 2 weeks into the war. They are tracing the enemy. However, our guy informs William that it can be a trap because the enemy has purposely shown themselves to them. He cautions everyone to fight a battle from a distance. Though no one listens to our guy before, they are now following his orders to not trust navigation equipment and keep their distance from the enemy. To this, William complies, as our hero has proven his worth in these 2 weeks of the war. After a while, it is proven that it is indeed a trap because the enemy is hiding underground, where they can't detect their presence through the equipment. Sir William is relieved to follow Adrian's instructions. The vice captain is quite tense, trying to understand the situation fully because they are facing the enemy with twice their numbers, and they need to wait for backup, which doesn't go without inflicting any damage on them. However, our guy consoles him to move forward. After a while, they get the backup in the form of 10 vanguards. They are stunned to see that the reinforcements come so early. William concludes that it must be our guy who has already analyzed the situation correctly. To see his stunned expression, our guy remarks dryly whether he is going to walk instead of attacking the enemy. He adds that it will take time for the enemy to have backup because their base is in the mountains. To see his relaxed posture, William thinks he doesn't know who is going for a walk. Upon defeating the 5 enemy vanguards under his command, everyone is talking about the great command our hero has, as he is the only one gaining the upper hand in this war compared to other losing units. Subsequently, Otis thinks about our prodigy, who became stupid after being poisoned. But he changes his perspective, seeing Adrian as a sleeping dragon who has woken up now. Suddenly, he expresses his desire to make Adrian his son-in-law, which baffles everyone. They reason that he is already committed to someone he brought to war as well, but he is still persistent in wanting to use his daughter to have our dude on his side. They reason again that he is addicted to games. But Sir Otis says it's not a problem, as he is not addicted to bad things like drugs or alcohol. They understand that he is persistent in making Adrian his son-in-law, but they remind him of the fiery personality of his daughter. Thinking about his daughter's temper, he changes the topic while ordering them to send a report to headquarters, along with the performance of our guy. Meanwhile, our hero is approached by William. He warns him to keep the conversation short while checking his status, which is favorable and anticipated. He wonders whether it is because he saved his life during a battle. This vanguard gets straight to the point, while asking him about his reason for hiding his nature. He is worried about their estate, which will be ruled by Sedir, who is unfit to rule it. He then expresses his support for Adrian, whether he is going to compete with his brother for the Viscounty. Adrian can see he is speaking the truth, but doesn't understand his real reason behind it. He thanks him for the offer but shakes it off, which disappoints William. As he is leaving, he thinks about his stepmother and brother, who might still be using some other methods of spying on him that he is not aware of. Besides, he doesn't want to share the joy of taking his revenge with anyone. Before leaving, he tells William that he will remember that he is concerned about the estate. He even remarks dryly about how it is not a big deal to get a medal in the war, as he is going to receive one. However, at the event of receiving a medal, he realizes that it is indeed a big deal. He receives the second-class Golden Lion Medal from the 23rd King of Reinhardt himself because of his many contributions to the war. During the ceremony, there is a crowd of people cheering for our dude. But he is thinking about how the king has chosen him to become a figurehead for the war. While the cameraman tells our guy to strike a decent pose for a picture with the king, he nervously thinks about the reaction of Cedric. As expected, this dear son of Anna Lawrence is quite furious after learning about the accomplishment of his half-brother. He regrets not participating in the war, as it could be his accomplishment. Then he asks about his father, who is living with Adrian's mother. With annoyance, his mother confirms this by asking whether she should poison his father as well, which angers Mama's boy. His mother reasons with him that his father is protecting his mistress just because of Adrian. He asks about the news regarding whether our guy is going to live on his own from now on. His mother confirms it, adding that this is his reason for getting accomplished in the war, as he needs to make his name and probably get a title in the process. Still, she emphasizes that no matter what, he is not Cedric's competitor, because she is pulling the strings of the Viscounty of the family, as well as his maternal grandfather, who has great influence. In the end, he is going to get the title and territory from his father. However, all of this doesn't make him content because he remembers the jealousy he feels from a young age whenever he hears the praise of his half-brother. He is not happy that his brother's success is getting on his nerves. It has been 7 weeks since the beginnings of the war. Our guy is shown taking care of his vanguards by giving them energy drinks, which refresh them beyond measure. In reality, he adds 1 drop of legendary medicine to the drink in order to get the vanguards going and end the war sooner. During their scouting, someone reports to him that Otis has summoned him. He first feeds his giant bird, then heads toward his destination to meet Count Otis. During his journey, he expresses his wonder regarding the Count calling him frequently. Haman answers that it shows the Count's trust in him. He annoyingly thinks, whatever it is, he has no choice but to go to him. After a while, he is seen holding a wine glass in his hand without any clue why he is there among the high-ranking commanders. He doesn't understand what's going on. As if it is regarding the war, the Count can just send him a message instead of summoning him like this. He concludes that it must be something important. At the same moment, it is revealed that there is an important announcement. The declaration of war is going to be made soon, as the foreign ministers of both countries are sorting out matters. It's also explained that since the Crosan Empire doesn't intend to go all-out war with them, they want to keep it on a local level. Upon hearing this, there's a murmur about why Crosan is going to such lengths. While thinking about this, Adrian compares it to Korea's bad relationship with its neighboring country. At that point, he shows concern for his vanguards who have been dispatched. The Count responds that they are to keep going until the declaration, which makes Adrian think they are meant to die because of the decisions of some higher-ups. To change the topic, the Count tells him to take care of his medal as a spoil of war. Hearing this, Adrian shakes off his concerns, while realizing that he needs to focus on himself because he has to return to his family after the end of the war. With that, he happily cheers with the Count while thinking about leveling up when he goes back. When he returns, he has a meeting with William, who comments that it's a good thing the war is going to end, as there might be a catastrophe if it drags on much longer. In response, our guy tells him to rest and offers him a cookie he received from Count Otis. This prompts William to comment that the Our Dude is quite different from other nobles. As Adrian looks softly at his vanguard, he reflects on how he has had to sacrifice his soldiers while guarding the command center. He also thinks about his past life, where he was just a common man, which might make him different from other nobles. Unbeknownst to his thoughts, William keeps praising him, while saying that he has the posture of a true noble, despite his behavior being more like that of a commoner. For example, William points out how Adrian calmly sips his black tea even during enemy attacks, which helps calm his subordinates as well. In the end, William expresses both his and his men's trust in their brigade. At that, our guy understands that his vanguard is going to bring up the topic of him being a successor again. He is going to shake off the offer, but Sir William interjects by informing him that they have taken measures to ensure no one is keeping an eye on them. He understands how serious William is, but he still points out that his behavior might be noticeable, like how he is speaking openly in front of him. At that, William clarifies that he only comes here when everyone is resting. Then, he declares his loyalty to Adrian Lawrence. Our guy asks whether William's knights are on the same page as him, which he confidently confirms. Then, our guy finally agrees with him, but on the condition that they must act normal until he commands them otherwise. William points out that they have great power and forces, but Adrian clarifies that even though they have power, it may not be enough, so they need to follow his plan. William agrees to this. To gauge their power, our boy asks about the number of their loyal knights. William replies that there will be 5 vanguard and 30 knights in total. Additionally, they can gather more people from around the territory. He agrees with this idea. Not only that, William gives him great news that Sir Perseus is going to be assigned to him by his father. So he suggests recruiting him. Sir Perseus was a high-ranking vice captain in the Lawrence family, someone who can only be defeated by the captain himself. But he left his role after becoming entangled in family politics. If he returns, it would be great news, as his presence could sway neutral knights to their side. Moreover, someone of his caliber would bolster their forces enough to give them a chance against the forces of Adrian's stepmother. He likes this idea, and instantly tells William to arrange a secret meeting with Sir Perseus, to which William agrees. After a while, he is shown heading to his room, and along the way, soldiers salute him. He knows this is a sign of power, but for him, real power lies in completing the next lucky encounter quest. It's for this purpose he started playing the game, but it's seen that after playing the game, he ends up dead, along with both of his supporters. A dark shadow, called Death Knight Pascal, stands there victoriously. His game informs him that he needs to play again when he will recover his experience. It's basically part of the game to die and face crises in order to learn and level up. But in our hero's case, it's different since he shares the game experience with reality, so he knows the pain would be immense if he dies. So far, he is playing very safely. A little while ago, it is shown that Adrian, with his supporters, is ready to fight the Death Knight Pascal. This undead aura master has also overpowered the female support of our dude. Afterward, he resurrects and wakes up in a nearby village, while writhing in pain. The first thing he does is resurrect Arcia, who immediately apologizes to him as soon as she's before him. He also asks about her well-being. She answers that she's okay since her sense of pain is lower than his, which relieves him. He thinks about how embarrassed he feels hiding behind her. Besides, this incident also makes him realize his lack of combat power. The simple method of their combat is based on Arcia blocking enemy attacks while he uses magical attacks for critical hits. They've been successful so far because of the equipment they possess. But once the enemy overpowers Arcia, it's over for them since our mage needs time to cast a spell. He concludes that they need his eagle's support to fill the gap in their combat strategy. He also thinks with uncertainty that they might need one more person to back up Arcia in blocking enemies' attacks. Yet he has shrugged off this idea. Now he has come up with 3 solutions for their shortcomings. First, to reduce his casting time. Second and third, to use both of his supporters for attacking the enemy instead of just being defensive tankers. Finally, he explains his plan to Arcia in order to try it out. Nevertheless, the next time, he dies with his supporters during the second encounter with the Death Knight Pascal. He later reflects on the fight, where both of his supporters also fought valiantly, but they were finished within minutes. He analyzes the situation and comes up with a solution that he needs to equip the eagle with armor in order to survive longer. Now he is ready to play again. But once more, he dies at the hands of the unfathomable Death Knight. Now he is frustrated beyond measure. So, he expresses to Arcia that even though they failed, the implications of the armor in their combat helped them prolong the battle, which allowed them to sort out the fighting pattern of Death Knight Pascal. Now it is round 5, and the Death Knight scoffs at seeing them in front of him again, while taunting them for being clowns who come to entertain him. He has planned to use an explosion in this attack and attack him while he is busy with Arcia. However, the knight blocks both our hero's and his support's attacks single-handedly. It seems like this opponent is too much for them, as after a while, his eagle is panting and finally throws our hero in front of the enemy like food. Once again, he is dead. However, our hero doesn't give up as he changes the formation of their battle in round 9, while taking the front position. Looking at his opponent, he thinks about how he has successfully prolonged the battle for 25 minutes, so they might have a chance to win against him, despite having trouble chanting a spell while avoiding attacks. But this knight manages to win once again, and now our guy is planning to use evasive techniques next time. It seems like he learns this evasive technique for the next battle because he is now successfully avoiding the enemy's attacks, which results in prolonging the battle to 62 minutes. So even though he is again dying at the hands of his enemy, he has a smile on his face while hoping to win next time. With that, he wakes up, wondering if he has played for a longer time. Arcia is before him, and he expresses his thoughts that this game is going to be over soon. But now he is stuck. While stretching his muscles, he feels like everything in this world is going slower. Arcia clarifies that it's because he is experiencing death and resurrection frequently. He curiously asks whether she feels the same. Looking at her body, she answers with uncertainty that she feels stronger than before, even though her abilities are unchanged. He understands that this strength comes from experience. He observes Arcia's answers and concludes that she is behaving more and more like a human with the passage of time. Afterwards, he orders Arcia to rest while he does the same. Then Adrian plays countless times against the Death Knight, and each time he damages its HP a little more. In one round, he nearly reduces its HP by 98%. Now he's playing round 18, and finally our guy is able to defeat the Death Knight Pascal, with all of them still standing alive. He cheers happily as he has finally cleared stage 7 of the Curiosity quest. Now they are in the grandiose 8th floor of the Lucas Magical Tower, and are in awe of this place. He wonders whether the architecture around them is real or graphic. When he touches it, he realizes that it is real, but the next moment, he feels something that makes him think the 7th quest isn't over yet. However, with a smile, Arcia tries to console him. He lowers his weapon and looks at the magical circle in front of him, where a little old man fairy is shown. This little oldie looks familiar to our guy, and he is baffled to find him a copy of Lucas himself. The person then introduces himself as Chester, who is the manager of Curiosity, and a magical clone of Manuel Lucas himself with his memories. This information makes our guy nervous because he has no idea what the clone's intentions are. Therefore, he expresses his disbelief at being able to talk with Manuel Lucas's clone, who doesn't seem like AI. The clone replies that he indeed holds all of Lucas's life experiences within him. In this way, he has a database of memories in which he is like a wandering spirit. This makes our guy conclude that Lucas was indeed not interested in eternal life, which relieves him after realizing that this clone isn't going to overtake his body. So he asks about the reason for Chester's appearance, while thinking he might face some obstacle or mission to overcome. Instead of answering him, Chester swishes his staff, and there shows a screen in which his system grants him the ability to use the Hollywood system's administrator rights 5 times. As Lucas put everything into Curiosity, he gave many rights to the person who would obtain it. Chester explains that since our guy hasn't acquired the full form of Curiosity yet, he has a limited ability to use this system, which he can fully unlock once he obtains all of Curiosity. When asked about the purpose of this right, Chester explains that our guy can have some authority over the Hollywood system, with certain limits, which stuns him completely. This system means he will have access to the internet of this parallel world. Chester also points out 4 rules for using this authority. To summarize, our guy can't alter the Chronicle game, control anyone's brain, steal anyone's property, or use the authority to leave a negative impact on this world. At that, he asks whether he can show the legitimacy of his wealth earned through Curiosity via this system. Chester answers that it is possible but recommends he should invest and record it in online currency. He asks whether there's a chance of getting caught. Chester replies that there is 0 chance because this system will modify his ledger and records. Then, he uses his first administrator rights to transfer his online earned money to his real account, including the rewards he will get on the 8th floor. He uses his second administrator right to register Arcia as someone from the Holy Land of Everhill. Chester explains that he will make her an orphan, which is an idea that our hero likes. Then, he asks if this clone of Lucas will also help him practice these administrator rights, to which Chester answers affirmatively. Afterward, he asks about Lucas's reason for going to such lengths to grant him privileges like this. Chester replies that Lucas did it because he didn't want another person from Earth to have a miserable life like his. At first, our guy thinks the word miserable doesn't suit someone like Lucas. But then, considering things from Lucas's perspective, he concludes that life without Curiosity would indeed be miserable. He then thanks Chester, who replies that he is not Lucas. Still, our guy thinks he might have seen a smile from the legendary Archmage. Later, all of his money is transferred to his real bank account. Meanwhile, a meeting is taking place between William and Perseus in the Nietzschean city of the Crown Land. Perseus is a little baffled to learn that William is supporting Adrian. William backs it up by saying that second son of Lawrence has the potential to bring prosperity to their land. The former vice commander still doesn't believe in our hero's abilities, even after hearing about his contributions in the war. At that, William starts to clarify that he had the same thoughts about Adrian before the war, while knowing Perseus, who thinks Adrian was just lucky to make contributions in the war. Perseus asks whether that's not the case. William briefly exclaims that it's different to see it through reports and experience it firsthand. He even challenges Perseus to see it for himself, as some of Cedric's followers have started to follow Adrian after recognizing his abilities during the war. This makes him think that our guy indeed has patience, resilience, and a survival instinct to become an ordinary person after experiencing being poisoned, in addition to his intelligence. Then he asks what he can do for them. William explains that they need him to persuade the neutral knights to follow Adrian, which makes him scoff at such a huge task. However, he replies that he will meet Adrian first before making his decision, to which William agrees, as he also wants it. He is told that our dude is going to visit him and will call to know his whereabouts and invite him to come over. While looking at William, Perseus is determined to see Adrian for himself, to decide whether he is someone worth following. William keeps trying to call his master, but he isn't picking up. Suddenly, they go on high alert as they sense a teleportation via the seventh circle and wonder who could be arriving. Then, in a flashy entry, our guy appears with his bodyguard. Upon arrival, they immediately sense 4 assassins surrounding them. Adrian looks at both commanders and comments dryly, while noting how, even though the assassins are armed with artifacts, these high-ranking officers didn't sense them, which shocks him. He then orders Arzia to kill the assassins, and she does so instantly. Both officers stand in awe of the scene in front of them, especially Perseus, who tries to comprehend the situation. Ar comments that he has been waiting 13 years to take his revenge, so he couldn't come with anyone less than an aura master. On the other hand, the former vice commander is completely in awe of our guy, and concludes that he is someone he can't dare to judge. Now it is time to talk. But before that, our guy checks Perseus's statue. That is astonishing, and anticipation, which he thinks is good for now. Then, with a snap of his fingers, he repairs and cleans everything in his room, which increases their amazement even more. He decides to teleport them somewhere else in order to talk with them privately, which ignites their surprised expressions. To clear out the suspicion about him learning the magic suddenly, he makes an excuse that he learned the magic from the great archmage teacher named Duke Riverdale, who is the most popular archmage of the Lucius Kingdom. Besides, he is someone who is also called the greatest teacher because he has taught 6 mages to reach the 7th circle. Both William and Perseus are astonished to hear this news, as he is seen playing games all this time. Our hero grins at that, which makes them think that he has learned this magic in the virtual world. Our guy makes up this whole story to make people accept his standing as a mage and Duke Riverdale's student. For this purpose, he also shows them the hologram photo with the archmage, as well as the platinum medal. He gets them with the help of Chester, who also modifies all of Riverdale's records, in which Adrian's name is mentioned as his secret disciple. All of this evidence is foolproof in a way that even the relatives and other disciples of Riverdale won't deny it. However, he restrains himself from claiming that he is the heir of the archmage, which could attract trouble for him. Now our boy comes to the point that, as Arcia and he have enough power to defeat Cedric and Anna, they don't need to search for supporters. This makes Perseus raise the question about his purpose of recruiting him in this regard. At that, Adrian replies that he doesn't want Perseus to return to the territory. Instead, he has some other tasks for him. For this purpose, he instructs him to lift his wrist, and then with a tap of both of their watches, he transfers 20 billion roots to Perseus's account, which leaves him flabbergasted. Now our guy instructs his former vice captain to create a group of people who not only carry out information according to his orders, but also do his dirty work. He needs this unnecessary organization to raise his status. Although Perseus doesn't like this work because it is against his profession as a knight, but he knows their situation, as they are going to be enemies of Raven, so it is a needed measure. Besides, he asks whether Adrian is sure about leaving such a large amount of money to him. Our dude ensures him that although this is indeed a large amount, but he can earn it through investment while thinking that he has already 3 times more money in his account. Then he rises from his seat while stating that from now on he was going to be the successor instead of Cedric and become the strongest and most respected man in this country. So he extends his hand toward Perseus while asking whether he was going to join him. Perseus agrees gladly to pledge his loyalty to him. Meanwhile, Anna stands in front of her subordinate, who tells her about the murder of the assassins who were strong enough to be defeated only by an aura master and an archmage. In fury, she throws wine in her subordinate's face and then asks about William and Perseus' status. He answers about William, saying that he has returned to his unit but he didn't find any trace of the latter person. This makes Anna comment that if Perseus is dead, her husband must know about it. However, it is clear that the situation is getting on her nerves. So she now wants to be a little more cautious, given that both Lawrence vanguards have decided to go against her. But she remembers the warning of Viscount Lawrence and ponders whether to not to go against Adrian in order to avoid complications, because no matter what, her husband is indeed the lord of the territory. Then she thinks about Adrian's accomplishments and getting loyalty from the knights. She knows that if William and Perseus support him, she won't be able to do much. Meanwhile, her subordinate asks what he should do about the Assassin Guild, as they need to complete the mission. But she slyly turns away, while saying that, what if she tries to kill her stepson again? Which is a simple way to solve the matter. This raises a protest from her subordinate, who warns her about Lawrence's reaction and Adrian's receiving attention from everyone. Unfazed by his lecture, she opens the wine bottle and asks how long he has been working with her, to which he answers that he has been working for her for 30 years. She responds that he should know by now that she doesn't like to receive lectures and pours the wine bottle over his head while saying that she knows all of this but has no choice. At that, he starts to apologize to her as he feels pity for Adrian. After listening to his statement, she orders him to take the blame for the murder, as he should do it to prove his loyalty to her. He doesn't have a choice but to comply with her, which prompts an evil laugh from her. Then, she leaves, after instructing him to tell the assassin team to be successful this time. Otherwise, she will murder their leader. When she leaves, he is devastated, while thinking that she has abandoned him like this even after he has served her for so long. However, he gets up, hoping for Adrian to survive this time as well, as it might give hope to him. But he doesn't think something like this will happen. Meanwhile, our guy is celebrating with Count Otis and other nobles for the victory of their division. During this celebration, Count Otis thanks our guy because he received recognition and rewards because of him. Some of the other nobles also invite him to their estates, while praising him for his achievements. He knows they are showing him generosity because he shared his credit with them. Anyway, he credits his achievement to the wisdom of the Count Otis, which prompts a comment about his humility. Otis even shows him sympathy, saying that if the war continues, it could work in his favor, which possibly earns him a lordship. Right now, he's just a Viscount, which is a title he can't pass on to his children. Because these kinds of titles aren't inherited and hold no property, they can't be passed down, leaving him feeling like a half-noble. Then, he brings up the topic of our guy meeting his daughter, saying it's unfortunate that he couldn't use his talents in the right environment, so he might join their family. He suggests arranging a meeting with his daughter, which clearly makes our boy nervous. Anyway, he says that he will think about it while his mind is occupied with his stepfamily, who are going to be shocked beyond measure to see him back and to find out what he's going to do with them. The next day, the army and the soldiers are being disbanded. After many meetings with the nobles and being invited by them, he starts playing the game during his journey back home. But it's been 10 days since he reached level 200, and now he's stuck at level 202 because the game level is getting harder. He looks at the screen and analyzes his situation as soon as they defeat the Death Knight Pascal. Not only does their strength increase, but the power of the monsters and the requirements to level up have also increased. Now he can only level up 1 level a day at this rate. He understands that they have an insufficient group to level up fast, because fighting these kinds of monsters requires at least 5 people. First, he thinks about recruiting some people but rejects the idea, as it would attract attention to him, which he can't afford due to him having the curiosity. So he leaves the matter and decides to take his progress slow, and then he orders Arcia to go ahead, but she doesn't move. At the same time, Shadow also comes, and he realizes something must have happened, so he logs out immediately. He sees Arcia fighting with someone and uses his great shield to protect them. Arcia informs him that these people must be assassins from the same group they faced last time, as she can sense the same energy coming from them. She adds that they are using force swords and shields, like typical assassins use. He comments that they have 5 vanguards who can easily deal with them, so they don't need to worry. At the same time, a golem appears, breaking his sword, which makes him realize his stepmother is going to kill him instead of Sir William this time. He takes out his staff while Arcia takes out her sword, and they get ready to fight. Meanwhile, the golem attacks them, and he counters it with a flame blast. Then they move ahead. On the other hand, the vanguards are having a hard time dealing with these monsters. They are ordered to retreat. Suddenly, there's a big explosion, while the vanguards wonder what these monsters are doing here, in Lawrence territory. While observing the fighting forms of our guy and Arisa, the remaining assassin decides to retreat because he is no match for the Archmage and an Aura Master. Before he goes ahead, Arcia gets him, but he orders her not to kill him, which makes the enemy more tense. He goes ahead to make a deal with the assassin, but instead senses something weird and asks Arcia to stop him immediately. However, he is too late, as this person attempts suicide with the poison he has hidden inside his mouth. At that, he comments that he thinks this kind of thing only happens in fiction. He looks at his knights and realizes that they are shaken. They ask William many questions, and he starts to answer them while telling them that Adrian is the student of Riverdale, which baffles them. Then he informs them of the lies our hero has filled him up with while praising our guy for how special he is to survive all this time while training himself as well. This scene makes him think it's natural for them to find him proficient enough to ensure their survival. Then William tells them that they are going to reach their territory. When they reach home, he has a desperate welcome from his mother. His father also thanks him. He then comments on the silence of their home despite having received the medal, which demands a grand welcome for him, contrary to this quiet one. At that, his father apologizes to him, but he shakes off the apology. Then his father informs him of the feast in his honor. While going inside their home, he glances at their territory's flying fortress, which is in energy-saving mode, and smirks. During the feast, a knight thanks him for saving his life, which prompts a remark from his father that he has learned to win hearts. At that moment, the devil of a stepmother ruins this moment with her entry. She awkwardly welcomes him, but his eyes are stuck on her servant behind her, whose status shows that he is happy to see him alive. This new information makes him think about making this person switch sides. Then he looks at Captain Klon, one of the powerful knights in the Anna group, who has a special skill for tactics rather than fighting ability. When he turns to his stepfamily, he thinks about how pathetic these two people are and feels ashamed to have been looked down upon by them at one time in his life. Then Cedric starts to taunt him by saying that he has accomplished something in the war and calls him shameless. Meanwhile, he is planning their painful deaths when he gets his revenge on them. So he starts his plan by taunting Cedric back, saying that he isn't happy to get a compliment from someone not so special like Cedric. He even goes to the extent of saying that if this responsibility of leading troops were in the hands of his brother, he will not only die but that his division will be annihilated because of his rash actions. Then he comments about the stupidity of his brother, which he might get from his mother's side in order to provoke him. All of these taunting remarks are provoking Cedric, but he doesn't show it. Instead, Cedric comments while laughing that the war has toughened up his brother, so he unsheathes his sword. Their father tries to reason with him, but Adrian stops him from interfering. He extends his sword toward his brother while claiming that he is going to throw his family away. Then his stupid half-brother turns to William and accuses him of separating their family apart because of his rebellion plan. He orders his knights to arrest William, but no one moves from their place. Seeing that, he repeats his order, but they retort that he should arrest William by himself, which infuriates him. Humiliated by the snickers of others, he raises his sword to his half-brother and is about to attack him, but is stopped by Arcia, who is eating a large piece of meat without a worry in this world. Cedric angrily tells her to leave him alone, but she doesn't listen to him. When he is about to repeat his words, he is slapped with the meat stick she is eating with such force that it throws him to the floor, while petrifying everyone around them. William comments on how Cedric is idiot enough to be slapped by a turkey stick and by a woman half his size. He watches as Klon unsheathes his sword, claiming that Adrian is crossing his limit. Our guy thinks about how Klon has protected Cedric like his king, and says to him that he's the one who crossed the line. Meanwhile, he thinks, while looking at Klon's scoffing expression, that Klon is the kind of person who has done many shameful things he doesn't even remember. Cedric angrily orders Klon to kill his half-brother since they dared to mess with their future lord. Klon then informs Cedric that he can't kill Laurent's second son because of his standing, but slyly raises his sword toward Arja, who's still eating turkey without any worry, and comments that he can kill her on the charge of attacking a noble. Before he can do anything, William raises his sword at him and orders him to stay away from Arcia. He's alerted to see that the people who were on Cedric's side are now on Adrian's. Cedric, however, happily notices the reinforcements of the knights approaching for the aid, and is excited to think that everyone on Adrian's side is going to be punished. Meanwhile, our guy concludes that the silence behind Anna was because she's been calling for help this whole time. Then our guy shouts at them, saying their lord is standing there, and they're daring enough to go against him from the opposite side. Even Cedric doesn't listen to him and orders his knights to attack. He analyzes the situation, realizing that even though the soldiers on his side are high-ranking, they aren't properly armed, unlike Cedric's soldiers. They'll be massacred if this continues. Klon also taunts him that this is happening because of his arrogance after the victory from the war. He even adds that he is going to be the cause of the murder of innocent people because, no matter what, the family system is not changing anyway. Now, he is going to die a painful death. His parents, worried about him, call him to use the artifact and run from there. Meanwhile, our hero stands there with a grin on his face because he wanted all of this all along. Then he looks at the people around him and orders his knights to protect his father, as this is a rebellion from Cedric's side. Klon tries to say that they are committing treason, but no one listens to him. At this moment, At the order of our dude, Arcia finally ends this farce and removes the illusion magic from herself, revealing her true form. Adrian orders her to deal with everyone except the 3 people at the front. Meanwhile, Arcia is killing the soldiers from Cedric's side like vegetables. He slaps Klon hard, who is too baffled by the situation and the strength of our 2 MCs. Even in this situation, he still orders his soldiers that Arcia is the Aura Mad Terry and orders them into formation to defeat her. This raises a compliment from our guy that it is impressive to him as a commander of the Knight's Order to have his soldiers control the situation. Klon shouts about who the hell he is, and our dude taunts him that he is his teacher who is going to teach him a lesson. With that, he has increased his power and mana. Basically, the magician needs time to chant a spell, which can be their weakness. As soon as they enter the 7th circle, they get the ability called as Memorize, which is spellcasting saving magic. Because of this magic, now our dude doesn't need to chant in order to use magic. Thus, he uses a flame blast on Klon, which stupefies his stepfamily, who look at the events unfolding in front of them. Klon tries to attack him again, which he dodges easily and attacks him with his staff over and over again until he knocks him down on the floor. To see this, both of his stepmother and brother rise with dread that they are screwed as Adrian becomes the Archmage. On the other side, Anna's father, Raven, is quite furious as well to know the situation. It seems like someone has recorded all the misery and stupidity of Cedric and Anna in the film as the incident unfolds, in which our boy gives them a taste of his revenge. Raven is beyond furious seeing the video as it's going viral. He's angry because, at this rate, the whole country will know about his daughter and grandson's current situation. His subordinate points out that people on the internet are accusing him of supporting his daughter and grandson's treason. He replies that he doesn't care about the opinion of some commoners. They raise the question that, what if the nobles agree with them as well? He reasons that they can't do much except send letters of protest, because this isn't the age when archmages and aura masters could challenge someone like Raven, who has an army equal to a marquise or duke. He briefly considers what would happen if some duke or marquise sides with him but shrugs it off, thinking they wouldn't want a new rival. His subordinate reminds him about the royal family, saying they might be interested in a young archmage and aura master. At that, he smiles slyly while saying they'll officially announce the video was edited. Besides, they'll take care of things before the video can be authenticated. He also deadpans that Adrian has achieved what he wanted to by spreading this video, which is starting a war with him. Then he asks how much force they can mobilize right now. His subordinate replies they have 200 vanguards and 1 flying fortress, to which he responds that it's enough to make our hero regret making an enemy of Raven. Meanwhile, our hero is calm, thinking the video must have reached his enemy, who must be preparing to attack him. He knows his revenge will be complete when it reaches Raven. He turns to the people in front of him who will help him solidify his position ahead. The blonde girl introduces herself as Olivia, the daughter of Riverdale, who's very close to the 8th circle and also the head of the House of Riverdale. After settling herself in front of him, she comments that he seems genuine, which gives him a bit of relief. But then she says that he can fabricate the platinum metal. Meanwhile, she starts to synchronize her magic circle with her companions to put pressure on him. The pressure is so intense that it shatters the china cup in front of them. Despite the intense pressure, our dude calmly asks what they're doing. With a smile, she shares that she's just testing his skill. He counters that she could have done it another way. She replies while repairing the cup that she did it because every 7th circle is different. At that, Adrian asks if she acknowledges him now. She responds that, despite some doubts, she accepts him because he can help expand her resources. He understands she's logical and asks what if he turns out to be bad guy. She says that no one would dare mess with the Riverdale family. Besides, he's a noble, which is another reason for her to accept him. Then, without any argument, he asks for a favor. Then the scene turns to Raven, who is ready to deploy his forces, but his subordinate rushes to him and shows him the video. In this video, Olivia introduces our guy as the disciple of her father, who is about to start his training at Riverdale School for the 8th circle. As he watches it, he understands that his enemy is 1 step ahead of him. His subordinate points out that with the Riverdale family's involvement, it will attract the royal family's attention. He looks at the video again, in which Olivia warns that anyone going against Adrian means they will make an enemy out of Riverdale School. For a moment, he seethes with anger, but he is still persistent about starting the way, which raises a protest from his men. One of them asks about the royal family. He asks whether they have ordered him not to go against him, which they answer negatively. Then he is firm in his decision. His subordinate again reminds him that Riverdale School backs his enemy, which infuriates him as he answers that they are just a bunch of foreigners. He decides to ambush Adrian, as he won't be expecting them to attack him now. Then he orders them to prepare everything as soon as possible. Meanwhile, all of these things are witnessed by our hero via his eagle, with whom he shares a vision. He thinks about his meeting with Olivia a few hours ago, in which he makes a request for her to hold a press conference. She asks whether he only wants this, as she can provide more support to him if he wants. He declines her offer, as he only wants her to announce him as her father's disciple and archmage. He smirks while thinking about her annoying expression when she asks his reason for doing this. In the present, he asks Arzia to get going, and they start to teleport while thinking that the Vanguard will protect themselves against Raven's troops. He thinks about how everything and everyone are moving according to his plan. He remembers what he replied to Oliva. He tells her that his enemies are like his prey, and that he doesn't want to share the joy of taking revenge with anyone else. The scene changes to inside the prisoners, where some guards desperately search for Anna and her companions because they escape from the prisoners. It seems like some people still follow them and help them get out. The prisoners rush toward the outside of the prison while Anna clutches a key to the flying fortress to her chest. While ascending the stairs, she concludes that this life is worse than death. Cedric asks whether she is really going to act on her plan, to which she asks that it is better if they will give up. When he answers negatively, she angrily tells him to follow her. When they are outside the prison, Anna glances upward where the flying fortress is floating in the air. She raises the key toward it and enters with her companions. It seems like Anna has so much hatred for our guy that she is willing to blow up the entire Lawrence castle just to kill him. After verifying the key and her identity, the system asks whether she will activate the flying fortress against the threat of enemies, to which she answers negatively. Then verifying her truth, the flying fortress activates to normal mode. She immediately orders the preparation of the main cannon firestorm at Lawrence Castle. However, our guy arrives just in time and covers her mouth before she can instruct the system to open fire. Her eyes widen when she sees him enter the flying fortress. Meanwhile, he informs her that she is doing exactly what he has already predicted. She looks at Cedric and the knights handled by Arzia. Our guy tells her she has already increased the list of her crimes, and now she and Cedric are going to sacrifice themselves to save their territory from the troops of Raven. He throws her to the floor, and with delight, he informs her that she has done exactly what he wanted. Otherwise, it would have taken him time to activate the fortress. To see the game change, she tries to get polite with him, but he doesn't heed her politeness and orders Arzia to bring Cedric, which she complies instantly. Cedric also changes color and tries to remind him that they are brothers. Instead of listening to his pleas, he veils them with a great shield and turns to the knights who are begging for mercy. He states that they are Raven loyalists, so he is going to send them to him. With that, he throws them outside the castle. Then he orders Arzia to upload the video to the internet because it brings good results last time. So he is going to use media platforms to play the political game. After a while, the news of Anna's attempt to attack Lawrence Castle spreads all over. Raven also sees this and asks to his subordinate whether they can kill every person who commented on the post. His subordinate responds that it is a tough job because the privacy of the users is protected by the Elysia Nation. Then he informs Raven that he has done the preparation for the war with the Flying Fortress and 200 knights. He orders them to advance while reminding them not to disappoint him. They transport through magic circle transportation. While at their disappearing forms, Raven ponders whether he should go with them. On the other side, Anna is terrified at the arrival of the troops after knowing the plan of our hero. Meanwhile, our guy is ready to celebrate his victory in advance, as he and Arzia are already at the dining table. As soon as he hears the sound of teleportation, his expression turns happy, and he immediately starts the mana surge. To sense this, both his stepmother and half-brother beg for mercy from him, but he sits at his table calmly while relying on what he has learned during the war. It is revealed that he is going to use his step-family for a suicide attack. He extends his wine to them while bidding goodbye to them happily. He happily turns to Arzia and asks her to make a wish while watching the fireworks created by the suicide attack. She complies with what he says while he thinks today is the day he gets rid of his step-family while getting ultimate freedom. The scene shifts to the conference room of Raven Castle, where he and his subordinates discusses the trouble they have communicating with their knights. They are worried about the communication failure, especially since their troops should have finished their business by now. They haven't been able to reach them through their personal devices as well. He asks about the spies they have in Lawrence territory and gets the answer that they can't communicate with anyone, as Adrian must have arrested their informant as well. Raven doesn't believe it, but his subordinate reasons with him that it's the only possibility they can think of. This situation makes him realize that our guy has planned everything in advance. It fills him with dread to think that the person who can be his grandson fools him. He asks if there isn't a single person in Lawrence territory who can assist them in this regard. His man replies that communication is not possible because of the space disconnection, or maybe there is a general server down too. At this moment, someone calls for his attention and informs him about the video that has recently appeared in a post related to Lawrence's Viscounty. This video shows a large blast in which many rubles fall on the ground, and some vanguards crumble those rubles in order to save the building on the ground. Once he shows the video to his master, his man informs him that they already evacuated the citizens an hour ago as well as shut down their communication server. Before he can inform further, Raven angrily breaks the table. Crashing everything, he asks about how many troops they can deploy further. His man answers that they can use either 75 Vanguard without a flying fortress, or 25 Vanguard with a flying fortress without violating national law. He informs him that after the destruction of their previous troops, they now have only the power of 1.5 flying fortresses. Besides, they use the suicide attack according to the video because their troops can't be saved from the close-range mana explosion. He concludes that this means Adrian was keeping an eye on them. Raven reasons with him that no matter what, our guy doesn't have any more flying fortresses to attempt a suicide attack. So his subordinate informs him that they are not going to go against him anymore, as the royal family finally stops them from taking action against the Lawrence family. At that, he starts to laugh hysterically to realize the loss of money he has to endure until now. He calculates everything and concludes that he needs 30 trillion roots for recovery damage because of just one mistake. He then turns to his men and asks them to communicate with him as they activate the communication server. Now Black Eagle is going to play a huge role in the success of our guy, as it can be used for auxiliary purposes. Nevertheless, let's set what our guy's reaction will be when his enemy has the audacity to call him. Raven tell our guy that even though he acknowledges his abilities, he is going to make him pay for his mistake. Our dude calmly assures him that his revenge will only be complete with the downfall of him and his family. Now he realizes that there is more to this story of revenge. He clarifies to his enemy that he has indeed used Anna and Cedric for the suicide attack and gives them a great cremation ceremony. This new information infuriates him, who makes sure that he will pay for the humiliation he inflicted on him. His empty threat makes our guy realize that his stepmother and brother are just tools for Raven. He only cares about his reputation over his blood relatives. Suddenly he asks whether Raven is on the 80th floor of his castle, to which he confirms. He informs him that he is going to get a gift from Adrian after a few moments. He then reminds him about the ability of memorization, in which 7th Circle magicians can save the time of casting 10 spells at the same time. He asks Raven whether Adrian can break his castle barrier if he uses this skill and activates 10 spells simultaneously. This question widens Raven's eyes, and all of them look outside where our guy's Black Eagle support brings his spells. Our guy happily informs him that he sends him a gift of 10 rounds of 7th Circle Blaze Blast. With that, his support activates the spells, and there is a larger explosion. While chuckling darkly, he hears the words of Raven's subordinate, who tries to help him escape through teleportation. He wipes his tear of happiness and disconnects that call with him. At the moment, William informs him about the arrival of reporters as he asks for the press conference. He then goes outside with his companions, where every servant bows to him and even trembles at his one gaze. He thinks these people are the same ones who badmouthed him. With determination, he goes ahead while thinking to leave his days off pretending to be a fool behind, and steps ahead towards the glorious chapter of his life. The next day, after the press conference of Adrian Lawrence revealing the truth behind the Raven surprise attack and his suicide attack on his troops, becomes the talk of the town, or specifically the internet. They also cast the news about Adrian's attack on Raven Castle, in which, unfortunately, he is saved. Some call his act of suicide attack cruel, while others think that Raven is someone who deserves it. Whatever it is, the thing is this news increases the popularity of our guy, who has millions of followers now. While in his home, William raises the question that he might get criticism from the people, which he shrugs off because now he has the freedom to live as he wishes. He then explains that despite the criticism from the supporters of the House of Raven, most of the media and commoners support him, which will be beneficial for him one day. To increase his support among the common people and prove himself different from other nobles, he starts to communicate with them via his social media account while posting his activities and schemes. Meanwhile, he explains about the importance of commoners and the disdain of nobles towards them when his father interjects that he has been summoned while showing him an official letter. According to the letter, both Adrian and Arcia are summoned to the Noble Board of Audit and Inspection. While looking at the letter, he concludes 3 possibilities, none of which seem friendly, as if it might mean they are going to be controlled by either nobles or the royal family. His father asks whether he has a plan to counter this problem, to which he answers affirmatively. He retorts by asking what nobles like the most. His father replies that it is money. Then he reveals his plan to gain the favor of the nobles and royal family through money. His father asks him to explain a bit more. He explains that he has earned some money through online investments, and he is going to solve his problem by paying a large sum of money through tax. While looking at his family's not-so-excited faces, he reveals his account balance, which shocks them to the core. William first compliments him for earning 60 billion rupees online, but our guy corrects him, saying he has missed one more comma, which shocks them a little more as his father asks whether he comes from the future to earn such a large amount of money. Anyway, they start to discuss the issue of tax, in which our guy has to pay $12 trillion for the tax. Besides, he also gets the tax exemption if he pays tax through the stores operated by the royal family. He is content with the progress and informs his father that he is going to spend some money anyway. When his father asks whether he is going to purchase anything, he casually deadpans that he is going to buy some flying fortresses and vanguards. Once again, our guy is the talk of the town as soon as they see the news of him having an income of $60 trillion through investment, which shakes the higher-up society. Meanwhile, Count Otis watches this news and is very happy with the achievement of Adrian, who surprises him again. His wife asks whether he is his subordinate during the war. He corrects her that Adrian will get the title of the Count soon, so they can't call him his subordinate. He even reveals his wish to make him his son-in-law, an idea that his wife likes the most, and even insists he do something about it. But their daughter Michelle interjects by saying that she won't be someone who will take advantage of her husband, because she will become powerful herself. This statement is scoffed at by her mother, but she insists she will fulfill her wish as soon as she acquires curiosity. They start to argue about the existence of curiosity, but are cut off by Otis, who assumes that our guy might get his hands on curiosity because of the accomplishments he achieves. Michelle raises the point that he is accepted by Riverdale's daughter, but he rejects this idea as it is safer for our guy to affiliate himself with the House of Riverdale, as he is the patient person who has hidden himself completely until he is Archmage. She again insists that he also has proof of his investment with the approval of the royal family. He raises the point that he might have a deal between the royal family and Riverdale, which prompts a comment from his daughter that he likes conspiracy novels. Their argument is cut short when the newscaster reveals that Lucas's curiosity has been discovered, which stupefies them. Meanwhile, in the magic tower of Lucas, our dude reads a book with a tired expression. He wishes he could put the information of these books directly in his head like he has done with skill books. He then thinks about his schedule in the following week, in which he has to go to the Board of Audit and Inspection. Then he meets with the royal family at the end of the war and the awarding ceremony. Afterwards, he will go to purchase a flying fortress and vanguard equipment. Between all of this hectic schedule, he still finds time to play a game in order to level up at the sacrifice of his sleep. He looks at Lucas's library, which contains very few books on military tactics. Despite Lucas' amazing inventions for military purposes, the main focus of his studies is about dimension teleportation. After studying the life of Lucas, our boy concludes that even though he is considered great by everyone, he is only a lonely person who desperately wants to go back to his home. That's why he leaves evidence that he is from Earth, so that he might find someone from the same dimension as him. His wish is fulfilled when he dies. At that, he thinks, even though he's not desperate to go back home, but it would be great if he could travel through dimensions. With a wishful expression, he decides to fulfill Lucas's wish and tries to get back home. Listening to him, Chester comments that he's someone who respects his predecessor, which he tries to brush off humbly. He then asks Chester if anyone will suspect him about his income. Chester answers that there's a chance someone might investigate deeper to find the gap between the actual trade and profit. He scoffs and says no one would go to such lengths, but he has a problem on his hands. He's getting too much attention from the nobles because of his accomplishments and Arcia. So, if anyone catches a hint of that, he has curiosity. He'll lose everything. To tackle this, he has planned carefully a fake curiosity discovery strategy and asks Chester how it's going. According to the fake curiosity discovery plan, Louis Fairmont, the intelligence agent of the Prius Republic and son of its president, is now the new discoverer of curiosity in the eyes of the world. So, everybody is cheering for him. Our guy does it because he wants to divert everyone's attention away from himself until he reaches the 9th circle. He expresses his discomfort to Chester about giving even the fake curiosity to someone as shameless as Louis. But Chester consoles him, saying that it was done wisely since he can't protect the curiosity right now. Basically, Prius Republic is one of the 4 nations in the Rondel that has a democratic system on the surface, but in reality, it's been a dictatorship led by Catro for 13 years. As Louis discovers the curiosity, he worries people will start following this dictator of a president. Chester replies that no matter what, nothing will change the country's system. Besides, their plan might cause a diplomatic war between countries, which will affect Catro and Louis, as their reputations will be ruined when everyone discovers the curiosity was fake, so it will be good for the citizens of Prius. He then asks if there will be any innocent victims because of his plan. Chester comments that Adrian is the one who went too far because of his lack of consideration. He then points out Adrian's cruel actions against his stepmother and brother. At that, our guy clarifies that it was because they were enemies. Chester is satisfied with his answer. believing a person should worry about the innocent but be cruel to their enemies. Hearing these comments, he annoyingly thinks that he seems like he's a real human being. He wonders if he will create something like Chester and Arzia once he reaches the 9th circle. Chester asks that if he's going to use his last right to administer rights, which he declines as he's reserved it for an emergency. He then level up with his support, as he's currently at level 205 and needs to reach level 250 to clear one requirement of the 8th circle. Meanwhile, servants at the Lawrence house discuss how Adrian is increasing his military power, and how he and Arcia are getting the titles of Count and Countess, respectively. They call him the new powerful man in the kingdom. Later, some maids fight over who will serve Arcia, as she's easy to deal with, and many maids admire her for coming from a common background. They are also afraid of our boy since they worked under Anna before. A maid finally wins and reaches Arcia's room. While serving her, she hesitantly asks if Adrian is going to fire them. Arzia responds that he's not going to make anyone suffer because of him, but deadpans that if she's Adrian's enemy, he would be merciless, which terrifies the maid. When leaving, the maid confronts Adrian, and her fear for him confuses him. From that day, another rumor spreads that Adrian never forgets gratitude or grudges, and Arzia will not spare anyone who will go against him. The scene shifts to the inside of a car, where Adrian is traveling with Lopez and Eric. Lopez is baffled, unsure why Adrian is taking them to the royal palace, while he expresses that he and Eric are not ready for this experience. While being busy leveling up in the game, Adrian also continues discovering talented people with his glasses after the war. Eric, on the other hand, is confident in his master, believing he has a plan. As Adrian heads to the Board of Audit and Inspection for inspection, he brings the 2 vanguards with him along with these 2 talented people. He explains that he doesn't have a specific plan, but wants them to gain experience meeting the nobles and royals to understand the people leading the nation. His driver informs him they've arrived at the teleport gate, entering the city of Lionel, which is the capital of the Reinhardt's kingdom. While looking outside of Carr's window, Lopez is in awe of the city's development. Unexpectedly, when they enter the city, people welcome both of our main characters quite warmly. A high-ranking administrator, Harris Walker, even hints that the nobles are causing chaos at the royal palace because of them. He adds that Adrian is liked by talented nobles like him because he got the title due to his skill. At that, our guy checks his status, that is, he is feeling doubtful and anxious. However, our guy is intrigued to see that this person has 4 high-level abilities and possesses the traits of a leader with integrity. Then he calls him, and Harris misunderstands, thinking that he's offended by his words, and immediately apologizes. Instead, he gives him a card and tells him he's going to appoint him as his vice lord when he gets his territory. He offers him the chance to contact him if he's interested in the position, which leaves Harris totally baffled. After a while, they're outside the investigation room, which only both of our main characters can enter. Our generous guy gives 3 million roots to each of his subordinates to spend while he's being investigated. Before he goes inside, Harris cautions him about the chief inspector, who has something against him. He consoles him, as he has already decided to leave the country if that becomes an issue. When he enters, he faces the chief inspector, Douglas Hamilton, but the person who catches his attention is the second prince and captain of the 2nd Royal Guards, who is also an aura master, sitting beside him. He wonders why such an important person is there. Both of them bow to the second prince, and our guy personally greets the prince, calling him by his title, Sword of the Kingdom. The prince is amazed that he recognizes him. Prince's amazement prompts dry comments from our guy that he's a citizen of his kingdom and has this common knowledge. He then checks the prince's status and is a little disappointed to find that his abilities aren't much higher. He thinks that that's all it takes to become an aura master. Anyone could become one. But he rejects the thought, realizing the prince has a special environment to nurture his talent. The prince asks if he's okay with him leading the investigation. He replies that if it's the board's decision, then he's fine with it, which offends the prince. Our guy concludes that the prince is quite shallow to be offended by such small things and apologizes, which the prince brushes off, telling him to sit. During the investigation, nothing special happens, and the prince concludes that the Lawrence family was right to take action against Raven. However, his decision is met with protest by Chief Inspector, but he retorts that when someone like Raven starts something, they should be ready to face the consequences. Thus, the Lawrence were right to go against them, which shuts the Chief Inspector up. Meanwhile, Adrian is confused because the relationship status with the prince says he is hostile towards him, but the prince is being fair to him. The prince is about to give the verdict that the House of Lawrence didn't do anything wrong, but Hamilton reminds him about Raven, who's on their side. Now our dude observes that the hostile relationship status is due to the prince's affiliation with Raven. After the prince gives the verdict, he turns to our guy and asks him to join his forces as he's competing against his elder brother, who is the crown prince. He is asking because our guy took down Raven, who was also the prince's ally. Our guy tries to apologize, but the prince clarifies that things will get messy for him if he sides with his brother. Now our guy understands the reason for the prince's presence at the investigation. Basically, the crown prince was set to succeed, but when the second prince became an aura master, things became unstable. Not only are their forces equal, but the second prince is a step ahead of his brother. So if they join him, they'll gain an archmage and an aura master, and their finances to support their cause. This way, the second prince's position becomes even more powerful if they join him. He tries to subtly reject the offer and tells him that he doesn't want to get involved in politics and doesn't even have a title yet to support him. The prince answers that he'll get the title of Marquise, which dumbfounds our guy for a moment, as it doesn't seem possible. The prince responds that he's going to make it possible and even offers him the territory of Marinkov, which is the best in the kingdom. Now tempted, he asks if he's really worth the offer. Prince looks at Arcia and comments that he is, especially with Arcia, who is an aura master, by his side. Still reluctant to accept immediately, he asks for time to think about it. The prince, who is expecting caution from an archmage, grants him a week, which he's grateful for. After finalizing the inspection, he shakes hands with our guy, reminding him that as a noble of county, he has a duty to prevent the incapable crown prince from succeeding for the future of their country. Our guy has no choice but to agree. The prince then turns to Arcia, expressing his wonder, as it's his first time meeting the female aura master. Before they can move on, the chief inspector passes Adrian and threatens him to accept the prince's offer, no matter what. Now they understand that the prince isn't used to rejection. The inspection was just a farce. Arcia asks if she should go home or stay for a visit. He asks if she's hungry, to which she humbly replies that she wants to eat. He remembers the prince shaking Arcia's hand and jealously tells her to wash her hands, as she has touched something dirty. They decide to eat, as he knows about some good restaurants. Someone else is keeping an eye on them and intervenes by offering to show them some good place to eat. This person is none other than the first prince, who is a fifth circle mage using a face alteration spell to hide his identity. Our guy immediately looks at his abilities and is impressed to see that he has many high-ranking skills. Adrian calls him by his title, which surprises the prince since no one, not even his brother, recognizes him due to the spell. Our guy observes the prince's friendly behavior, but can tell it's just on the surface because his instinct tells him not to make this person his enemy. So, he asks the prince to take them to a good restaurant. While following the prince, he thinks the crown prince has more than 3 high abilities, in which most of them focused on political and administrative skills. He concludes that the prince has a chance to become a powerful mage because of his intelligence. The prince understands that he has many questions about him. Our guy confirms this because the first prince is not as popular as his brother, which makes him wonder why. They enter a certain room, which turns out to be a teleportation room. He asks their reason for being there, as they can't use teleportation inside the castle, and the prince affirms that it's because of the barrier around the palace. The prince then informs him about the electric mine under the castle, whose energy clashes with the barrier's mana, causing it to break. In other words, he subtly hints that this is just an excuse to break the barrier. With that, he presses a button on the remote, and the barrier lifts, which astonishes our guy since the prince doesn't seem like just some ordinary dude. Later, they reach a fancy place where they can talk privately. The prince instantly presses the button to restore the barrier, commenting with a smile that it's working again. His actions make our guy wonder if his Aura Master brother knows that his brother has been messing with his security system. Then the chef interrupts, and the prince orders the best meal for his guests. This place turns out to be the palace of the first prince, and our boy is once again impressed to see many talented people there. While giving them the energy drinks, the prince informs them that he personally recruited the chef who made the most delicious meal in the country. Settling at the table, the crown prince reveals that he is following him on social media while showing him his profile, which is named as Smiling Hero. This surprises our boy once again as the prince informs him that he also enjoys virtual reality, unlike many higher-ups. While observing his friendly behavior, Adrian concludes that the prince's behavior is quite genuine, unlike his brother's. Then they start praising each other for the posts they make on social media and their good looks. Meanwhile, the chef serves them food. Our guy then gets to the point and asks the prince's reason for inviting them. The prince clarifies that they already know he wants to recruit them. Adrian asks about the deal, as in what they will get and what they should do. The prince hesitantly expresses that he doesn't have much to offer now, but he might get something once he becomes king. At that, Michael clarifies that he won't stop him from becoming a marquise, because that title isn't easy to bestow, especially in their kingdom, which is divided into 2. As Prince Luke had promised to make him a marquise, the first prince had decided not to prevent it without promising to do it himself if he favored it. Now he understands the whole plan that the prince wants him to join the second prince and gain the title of marquise, which he won't oppose. Then he'll join his side. Carefully analyzing the situation, he accepts the prince's offer immediately. The prince asks whether he needs time to think. Adrian assures him that he is sure the prince is more suitable to lead this country. He even tells him not to forget him after joining his brother's side and becoming a marquise. At that, he jokes that he won't betray his followers. Instead, he promises that no matter what, he is sure the first prince will become king, even without his help. Then the prince turns to Arcia and asks her opinion. Arcia, who is more interested in the food, replies that she's okay with Adrian's decision, which embarrasses our guy. Then Adrian raises the question of whether it will be suspicious to Luke and his lackeys if he just agrees to give him the title of marquise. The prince answers that he will be impulsive at first but will back off, feeling overpowered by his brother's side, and accept it later. So, our boy slyly suggests him to pretend that he's also gaining something if Adrian gets the title instead of pretending to be overpowered. Then he clarifies that they can make Raven a scapegoat because he already loses 40% of military power due to his personal grudge. Now the prince understands that he can demote Raven to Count in order to decrease the power from Luke's side, as well as make Adrian marquise. The prince asks whether it is something personal for him. He doesn't deny it as if he has a chance to strike his enemy. Then he takes it. The prince raises a question. What if Luke denies demoting the Margrave to Count? Adrian suggests making someone from his side, a Count, into a Margrave. He can suggest someone who accomplishes something in war, as he has done. He also thinks that if he betrays the second prince, it causes him great damage because of Arcia on his side. He is baffled by changing his relationship status with the prince, which is suspicious now. Adrian stops while looking at the prince's expression, who now coldly asks him how many people he has met on the side of Luke. He counts each person he has met before coming here, totaling 9. After Adrian answers this question, the prince's expression turns nervous, as if he is contemplating how to explain his suspicions of him. Adrian helps him by saying that they are both thinking the same thing. The prince is so impressed by our guy that he expresses that he might be a mind reader to figure out his plan of betraying his brother, which he answers subtly. He thinks that the prince becomes suspicious of him because he has already figured out the idea he has in mind and assumes someone leaks this plan. So that prince embarrasses himself to admit that it is the case. He even praises him for his decision-making skills. Both then change niceties and even decide to be friends. The prince gives him the communication device, which can't be traced, so that he can contact him when he needs to get in touch. Finally, they bid farewell to each other. Then our guy teleports from there. Then they teleport to the entrance near the palace, which once again impresses our dude by the prince's thoughtful strategy to take care of things like this. When they come outside, they find Lopez and William there, who hide their stuff as soon as they spot him. Their actions make him suspicious of them, and Arcia pulls out what they are hiding. The things they purchase are none other than Arcia and his figurine as the rising star, which stuns him. He asks them the reason for purchasing these things. William clarifies that they are just doing it out of respect, which he accepts anyway. The scene changes to the Golden Dragon Palace of the Brigham Empire, where the Emperor sits with pure rage listening to the news of how some corrupted people like Louis claim to have the curiosity that is the legacy of their empire. He yells at his subjects, asking whether they invest less money and effort to search for curiosity compared to Prius Republic. Then he asks Countess Elfrid to analyze the situation and explain whether Louis finds a curiosity that is genuine or fake. She answers that it is a 50-50 chance. She clarifies that the Prius Republic uses a very old method to understand curiosity. Besides, they also ignore the cryptogram written in some language called English. So if Lucas leaves these hints to just trick others, then there is a possibility to find curiosity. Otherwise, it's a fake. Then the Emperor asks why she says it is a 50-50 chance. She says it is because there is a chance the cryptogram is just tricks from Lucas. She also expresses her suspicion that someone might discover the curiosity and use the Prius Republic to divert the world's attention from them. The Emperor asks why someone would do such a thing, as they can just hide the curiosity. At that, she replies that it must be because they are already suspected of finding the curiosity, or there might be other reasons. Then they analyze this possibility and conclude that whoever does this must have national-level power to manipulate the Prius Republic into thinking that they have discovered the curiosity. After analyzing the current situation of the 4 nations that can do such stunts, they suspect Alicia, which is a nation of elves. This nation has such power to do this trickery. She also informs him about our guy, who is such a talented person that his achievements make him suspicious. While looking at Adrian, the Emperor rejects this thought, as Adrian doesn't have the power to control the nation. Besides, he is not only affiliated with the Riverdale faction, but also has the evidence to prove his earnings. To clarify our guy's position as a talented person, She also reminds him that Lucas is someone who is much more talented than Adrian. The Emperor also adds that the Reinhardt kingdom is also having inner conflict over the throne, so it won't be possible for the government to do such a stunt. So they suspect the Reinhardt kingdom after Alicia and Lucia's kingdom. Then they decide to keep an eye on these 4 kingdoms. The Emperor also issues an order to send a warning to the Prius Republic, which is daring enough to use Lucas's curiosity as their own legacy. He even goes to the extent of issuing the order to act on the threat if the Prius Republic doesn't back off. He deadpans how the destruction of one country is a small price to acquire curiosity. At last, he asks Elfred to contact Adrian and offer him to join their side in order to be a part of the great empire. The scene shifts to the house of Margrave Caskbell, where many youthful nobles gather to have a party. They approach the topic of our guy, who not only burns his stepmother and brother alive in a flying fortress, but also watches this scene with a wine in his hand and uploads the pictures on the internet. These youngsters are afraid to hear this news because they are none other than the bullies of our guy, who bullied him during school days. They are all worried about him having the title of Count and Arcia at his side as an aura master. They express their concerns that they are doomed by Adrian. During all this commotion, Isabella calmly sips her tea. She scoffs at them, thinking they worry about nothing, as she believes Adrian defeats Raven because Raven is foolish enough to make a mistake. Then everyone wonders why she is not afraid of him, considering she is someone who bullies him the most. She calls them nothing but a bunch of cowards, while stating that times have changed and they don't need an Archmage and Aura Master to win a war because of the Flying Fortress and Vanguards who can defeat them easily. She scolds them for being afraid of someone who is going to be a Count when their united positions are more powerful than his. Someone points out that she can say this because she is from a powerful family of Margrave. She excuses herself as her father summons her, while her friends tell her to come back sooner if she finishes early. While on her way, she reminisces about her academy days when she bullied Adrian and called him a commoner due to his mother's blood. They harass him to the extent that he furiously threatens them to punish them one day. While thinking about his face, she has a cute expression because she thinks he looks quite handsome when enraged. She stands in front of her father after a while, and is shocked to hear him say that Adrian is going to be a Marquise by Prince Luke. Unbeknownst to her father, who is unaware of his daughter's inner turmoil, he continues to analyze that if Adrian will be at their side, it will bring them many benefits. So he suggests that she should get close to him and even pursue him to become his future wife. She immediately goes back to her friends while thinking about how bad it will be if Adrian becomes the Marquise, as he will gain immense political power. Then she opens the door and looks at her allies, who are enjoying themselves. She realizes with dread that they won't be of any help to her. The scene shifts to Arcia, who changes her hair color to silver so someone won't recognize her in the game because she becomes quite popular in real life. After the awarding ceremony, the first thing he orders her is to change her look. The second thing is to look into her father's business and try to expand it. When he is analyzing the reports, Grant, the son of Perseus, suggests he enter the arms industry. Despite his father's protest, our hero listens to him and asks Grant to explain his reasoning. He explains that the companies he is going to take over don't give much profit, so someone like him, who makes trillions of roots, should be considerate of their future investments. Adrian is clearly impressed by his reasoning and adds that their profit is indeed limited. Then they discuss which kind of arms industry they should follow, and our guy drops a bomb by expressing interest in making Vanguard equipment, which stuns both father and son duo. Perseus raises the question of whether this is even possible. He answers that he is aware of the basic methods of general manufacturing Vanguard equipment, so he can make it work with some assistance. Basically, all the companies providing Vanguard equipment are influential families of the kingdom who are somehow related to the current royal family. Grant points out that existing businesses won't be happy with their progress. He consoles them by saying that he will handle this matter in a way that they won't feel threatened by him, as he will produce Vanguard equipment similar to theirs. Besides, it is not possible for every Archmage to produce Vanguard equipment, because only 2 out of 4 Archmages in their country can manufacture it. He knows that if he starts producing Vanguard equipment suddenly, he will draw public attention, so he plans to fail numerous times before succeeding. He even informs them that he won't stop at just making Vanguard equipment, so asks them to search for a magical tower to purchase for their business. His statement makes them realize that he will next start producing flying fortresses, which increases their admiration for him tenfold. Later, he is shown sitting in front of his parents, whom he informs about the second prince's offer, which he accepts, but hides his conspiracy with the first prince for the purpose of secrecy. The way his mother is reacting to the news of him becoming a Marquise, he teases his mother by saying that he will become a king and make his own harem. This statement offends his mother as she points out that he is saying such things in front of Arcia, who sits beside him. He thinks he makes her his fiancée just for convenience. He even turns to Arcia, saying that she is normal, as she knows it is a joke, but stops when he checks her status, which has mixed feelings for him. He tries to shrug off this matter and comes to the main point. He expresses that he will start a new beginning for the House of Lawrence while dealing with the people who follow his stepfamily and harmed him and his mother. He deadpans dangerously about how he will finish each of them. Meanwhile, there is a discussion going on regarding the issue of whether to make our guy a marquise or not. Some people point out that it is too much for him to become a marquise at once when the title of Margrave is too much. They once again count the achievements of our guy and decide whether they should give him the title or not. The second prince interjects by pointing out that people start to call Adrian as Second Lucas, and other countries also notice his talent. Before anyone charms him to join them, they should secure Adrian by giving him the title which he deserves. The first prince pretends to protest that it is an absurd concept to give the title of marquise to someone who has no title at all, which hasn't happened in 200 years. They argue for a while, but then the first prince conveys his point to gain favor and offers to demote Raven if they want Adrian to become a marquise. The second prince blatantly rejects this offer as it gives a bad impression of him as a leader to demote anyone for his gain. The first prince expects this reaction, then offers to make Count Otis Margrave for his accomplishments of the war, as he is indeed the superior of Adrian and deserves some credit. Even showing reluctance, he accepts the first prince's offer. Then both of them turn to the king, who looks quite tired of his son's childish fight and gives up by granting both of their wishes. After a few days, Adrian and his family are at the royal palace for the victory celebration event. His mother is a little cautious about her dress, which he brushes off by commenting that many young men will still ask her to dance. Both he and his fake fiancée wear the uniform for the requirements of the ceremony and hope that they have time to change into dress. On their way, they confront some people from Adrian's school who are none other than his school bullies. Our guy feels quite satisfied to see their faces. He even asks about their master, who is clearly Isabella. They try to start the conversation with him, but he ignores them by saying that he will meet them if he has time and turns to his mother. When they turn, our girl glares at his school bullies, which scares them to the core, and they pray Isabella will protect them. On the other side, she asks our guy whether she should kill them, to which he deadpans that he is going to keep his promise during their school days. As soon as they enter the palace, they get the attention of everyone, as many high-ranking nobles already know that he is going to get the title of marquise. Suddenly, he spots Raven, who leaves without saying anything as per the order of the second prince. Now they start the victory celebration event, in which, first of all, Count Otis receives the title of Margrave from the king. Adrian feels happy with this progress and the fact that Count Otis is on the first prince's side. During the ceremony, he spots Marquise Vincent, who, along with the second prince, seems quite interested in Arcia, which he clearly doesn't like. Then both of them are called before the king. The king bestows our boy the title of marquise with the territory of Marienkoff. Though Arcia receives the title of countess with the territory of Glendale, each of them is given a flying fortress to protect their country. After our guy receives a title, there is a murmur in the court regarding him suddenly having the title of marquise. On the other side, the king asks whether he would like to say something. He turns to the people and thanks the king for his generosity and fairness, as well as thanks both of the princes. Then he declares war against 4 of the houses of viscounts with a happy face, which shocks everyone. To see him doing this, the king thinks about how he has a very long headache because of his sons, and now destiny serves him a new lunatic in the form of our guy. Later, the said lunatic stands in front of the second prince, who reminds him that someone who just gets their territory recently can't expand it for 1 year. He answers that he will destroy these houses and then turn the territories to the royal family. The second prince understands that he won't budge, so he just warns him that he is going to keep an eye on our guy because of his disappointing behavior. Adrian, on the other hand, knows that the prince can't throw him out now. When he goes outside, he notices that no one wants to approach him now, contrary to their earlier behavior. He dryly comments that he has become a scoundrel in the eyes of the family, which is confirmed by his father. Both father and son argue for a while because of Adrian's stunt. However, his father decides to leave this matter be, as they should enjoy it for a while since it has been a long time since they attended a party of the royal family. Then he offers his hand to his wife, and Adrian looks at them softly, enjoying the party. Then he turns to his real motives. Meanwhile, our boy's bullies discuss how absurd it is for Adrian to declare war on them without any reason. To solve this problem, they decide to unite their power in order to defeat our warlock, as no matter what, he is still a new marquise, and they all have the power of the viscount. Meanwhile, Marquise turns to them. They try to greet him by his name, which prompts a criticism from our guy that they can't just call Marquise by his name. His bully protests that he can't just respect him when he declares war on them. Then he takes off his gloves by challenging him to a duel, which his father, the head of the House of Viscount Parma, along with other heads, interjects. Viscount Parma clarifies that he can't challenge his son because there is a large difference between both of their ranks, which goes against the county law. Then he turns to the Lord Parma and casually offers him whether he should cut his son's throat, then he will back down from the war at his house. Viscount Parma asks him to clarify his grudge against his son. Our boy asks him to ask his own son, who made his life hell. Then he goes ahead and offers Viscount Parma to think about to sell his son to prevent this war until he gets the official notice of war next week. Before going ahead, he glares at them, where Isabella is also hiding. Now these lackeys turn to Isabella and ask her to help them, even though she is scared herself. The next day, Adrian becomes the news once again because of his declaration of war against 4 Viscount houses. Our guy reads the comments from people who somehow get wind of his miserable life and how he was harassed during school days by those bullies. They respect and support him, which is somewhat touching for him. Then he turns to the person who shows him the catalog of flying fortresses, which are quite expensive. He thinks that people believe he declares war just randomly, without any military power, but he is going to purchase one. He calculates that he currently has 70 trillion roots, decides to purchase flying fortresses with them, and pays half the payment for 8 flying fortresses in installments. This way, he has saved 20 trillion roots in exchange. Then he spots Otis, with whom he shares some niceties. Otis finally notices that he is purchasing the flying fortresses and buys all of them. Otis, who also comes here to purchase a flying fortress, decides to make a reservation for one since he won't get any today. Then he introduces him to his daughter, who greets them politely. He also introduces himself and Arzia, a little confused to see her. He thinks he hears rumors about her being a lunatic. Then he checks her status and tries to shake off the rumor, as she seems very normal to him. Suddenly, his eyes catch something unusual, which is her special ability of English interpretation, which shocks him to the core, and he wonders whether it is the same English he knows. Meanwhile, Otis explains that his daughter is obsessed with finding Lucas's curiosity, but is quite disappointed to hear that Prius Republic has it. At that, she exclaims that they have fake curiosity. To see this, he concludes that if he is not from Earth, she might be the one who must find curiosity instead of him. Then he asks how she can say that Prius has fake curiosity. She explains that curiosity is hidden somewhere in a secretive place, because it is not something that anyone can find by looking for it everywhere. He asks what kind of secret place. She answers ambiguously that it is somewhere nobles can't or won't search for. He confirms in his mind that this place is indeed a virtual reality, as nobles assume that this is the place for a commoner to escape from reality. He looks intently at her and wonders how close she is to curiosity. Then she asks him whether she can follow him on social media, to which he agrees. She even compliments how she likes self-made people like him and Arzia, unlike someone like her father, who gets titles through inheritance, which disappoints his father at her blatant insult. Then she asks him for a meeting, and he assures her that he will send her the invitation soon. When they leave, Arzia asks casually whether she should kill her, which he asks her to wait for, because for a while he wants to observe her. The scene changes to the meeting room of 4 Viscounts who discuss how Adrian spends 140 trillion roots, half of which goes to pay in installments for military power. They are stunned to count military supplies and equipment along with the flying fortress bought by our dude in one day. For a while, they think that they are screwed, but they reason that he is still a new lord and doesn't have enough human resources to use them. However, the Viscountess interjects, saying that nothing they expect comes from Adrian, as he must have taken enough measures given his status as Archmage. She suggests them to accept things as they are, as they can't panic forever. At this moment, their subordinate interjects to inform them that our intelligent MC has posted a job on the internet for knights and received 4,000 comments from people wanting to work with him. Parma understands that their guy is a step ahead of them and asks whether he is going to hire attendants for the flying fortress as well. The subordinate answers negatively, saying that he has brought a magic tower artifact company, so he might use these people there. So they further discuss how they are not only facing military power much bigger than theirs, but Adrian and Arcia are themselves powerful enough to massacre them. Now they feel scared for themselves. They don't have the option to request help from other territories, as it will cause a civil war, which the king won't allow. They are desperate to find a solution for their problem, wondering what they will do now. Finally, finding no option in front of them, Viscount Parma summons his son, who started all of this. Meanwhile, at the center of the Marinkov, Adrian looks at his new territory through his new house, feeling a little uncertain that he is finally a ruler. Then Pesius, with the head of security, Helena, approaches him, asking whether he likes his new order of knights. He comments that they are quite good, but his captains are more than excited to boast about his military power, which he has achieved in such a short amount of time. but he remains humble enough to say that it becomes possible because his people want to work for him. Then they boost how his calculation comes in handy to create their orders of knights, which embarrasses our guy. He thinks that he has planned everything roughly, but in the end, it's just his luck that works in their favor. Then he asks whether they should include the flying fortresses in their territorial war, which Perseus agrees with because Adrian chooses them carefully. Then he looks outside, where numbers of flying fortresses with different models stand by in the air. The oldest ones are the gifts from the king, so he can't just send it back. He decides to use it for a while and sell it to a small territory later on. Then he turns to his vice captain and tells his vanguards to start preparing for the war that shock everyone. He explains his plan to ambush each viscount on their territory while preparing in 3 hours. Later, they will destroy each of them with the main force that contains him and his support. Perseus raises a question about whether they receive permission from the royal family. But our confident hero is sure of getting permission and insists his vice captain to move on, as they can make the excuse that they are just training. While going ahead, he is determined to show everyone his military power by participating in the battle, because that's what leaders do. Guide everyone while taking the front. Meanwhile, 4 bullies of each house of Viscount are hell scared of the upcoming war. Meanwhile, in Parma Viscount, everyone is in a panic state and running because the war is going to break out any minute. But one woman is calmly enjoying her drink in the cafe. She is Countess Elfrid of the Brigham Empire, who comes there to recruit our guy, but is now amazed to know his news stunt after becoming a marquise. Now she is interested to see how Adrian plays his cards in this war. Meanwhile, someone else also approaches her with an intrigued expression, and she is none other than Olivia Riverdale. The scene shifts to Adrian sitting before the representative of Viscount Parma, who reminds him that they didn't get permission to start a war, but he has brought his troops in front of his land already. Our boy casually answers that he is there just for training, which raises the question of whether they are going to attack them as soon as permission is granted. He answers affirmatively, prompting a protest from him that it is against the standard morals. At that, he thinks that what the son of Lord Parma did to him should be considered immoral. Nevertheless, the representative is sure that they won't get permission to start a war over a school-time grudge. At the same moment, they are informed that they are granted permission to start a war, which makes our guy grin haughtily. He expresses how the royal family knows who is more worthy. That's why they grant him permission. Then the representative tries to persuade our guy to back off from the war, but he declines it by saying he should persuade his master instead, because the only way to stop the war is to surrender to him. With that, he starts the teleportation magic, and everyone sees with awe the teleportation of the flying fortresses and vanguards to their territory. He orders his troops to advance, which tenses every person from the Parma territory. He lazily asks the men of Parma to go back as the war is just about to start. With that, they rush from this place. Then he turns to his vanguards and orders them to advance ahead. He then tells Perseus that he and Arzia are going to join the front line and make Perseus the commander in the meantime, which baffles the new commander. He tries to stop them, but they ignore him completely. So Perseus tells his knights to protect both our main characters on the front lines with their lives. Going ahead in the war, our guy thinks people are wrong to say that revenge brings only emptiness, because it brings a sense of purpose to someone like him. Then he thinks about his step-family and his bullies at school who torment him. Now, while swishing his staff towards Parma territory, he is excited to see his enemy's face painted with misery. The said enemy and son of Parma are totally crestfallen due to the war. This bully doesn't believe that Adrian is really going to attack them. He turns to his vanguards and asks if there are any chances of them winning the war. They reply that they have no chance of winning the war because their enemy have twice the troops, an archmage and an aura master. At that, he starts to shout at them and miserably asks what will happen to him if they lose this war. The vanguards facing him decided that it was time for a reality check for this bully. They start to tell him how selfish it is to think about himself in this drastic situation. Then they state that it is better for him to surrender to Adrian to help him release his anger so that their territory will be safer. He yells at them for suggesting something like this. The vanguards express their disdain for their master's son, who has done many bad deeds and needs to die for it. So it is better for him to reap what he has sown. Yet this bully doesn't admit his mistakes, as he assumes that what he has done just to discipline Adrian, who was beneath him. At that moment, he spots the captain and asks for his help to escape from this place. But with a stern expression, the captain pushes the vanguard equipment and armor toward him. He announces that he is going to have a one-on-one battle with Adrian Lawrence as per his father's order. But this great son of the Viscount is crying like a baby while being dragged by his captain to his demise. The last thing he remembers is the enraged face of young Adrian, who promised to punish him in the worst way. Then Parma is ready in his vanguard gear. Captain tries to make him come out of despair by telling him that he still has a chance to fight and survive after dueling with Adrian. With a terrifying expression, he retorts that it's not comforting at all. Annoying at his behavior, Captain informs him that he is there to teach him to survive instead of comforting him. He tries to encourage him by saying that he has two options: either be considered a coward or fight with Adrian for survival. With the first option, he will still be given to Adrian as an offering in order to end this war. With the second option, he has a chance to defeat his enemy and end this war, as Adrian doesn't have an heir who will continue it after his demise. It boosts his morale a little, and he is determined to kill Adrian and then turn to them with his rage, as they will be next to endure it after he is done with his school-time nemesis. They reply that they are happy to receive their punishment if he can defeat his enemy. Then he goes outside with determination to be a killer of the mage, like the typical title of Vanguard, as soon as our guy lets his guard down. But when he goes outside, he is flabbergasted to see the scenario outside. Many of his vanguards are defeated by our guy and girl without any casualties on their side. People even call him a monster for damaging the vanguard equipment and injuring the knights. Parma turns to his captain to double-check whether he is really going to fight one-on-one with this crazy magician. Meanwhile, our guy kills every vanguard coming in his way with a swish of his staff and crack of his magic. At the force of his magic, he even damages Parma's flying fortress, which terrifies his former bully. As soon as he spots Xerath, our dude gets down and steps before him. On the other side, this coward's captain proves to be more cowardly than him and surrenders instantly before our boy. Then they push their master's son as an offering to Adrian, who fumbles that he is going to challenge him to a duel. This change of events stuns our guy a little, but with a snap of his fingers, he attacks Xerath immediately. At that, his bully starts to cry because of his injury. Unfazed by his crying, our guy claims to get back the payment of 70 trillion roots he spent on the installment for buying the Vanguard equipment and other military power. Then he exclaims that he is going to get all of their treasury in the form of Vanguard equipment and the flying fortress in the backyard. Xerath asks whether it is his main goal to get money. He nonchalantly answers that it is one of two things besides taking revenge on him. Then he starts to name the bones Xerath breaks during their school days. He expresses it's not enough as he is mentally tortured by him, which he can't ever forgive. So he heals him to prevent him from dying of blood loss, as his revenge won't allow for an easy death. Then he orders Parma Vanguard to take him back, which they comply with immediately. Later he turns to the captain who asks, with terrified expression, whether they should escort him to their lord's office, to which he agrees. Parma apologizes to our badass hero. Finally, the battle ends after only half an hour. A little while ago, Alfred and Olivia confronted each other. Alfred doubts whether Olivia comes here to confirm whether Adrian is really that pupil of his father. She counters this question by saying that she is here to support him as a fellow member of the Riverdale faction, but doesn't understand Alfred's reason to be there. She even warns her not to dare take Adrian to her empire. They glare at each other for a while, then leave the matter for the time being. Upon sensing teleportation interference magic, they turn to the scenario of the war. They interpret our boy as a warlord. Later, they are awestruck to see him engage in the short-range battle with vanguards. Basically, magicians use short-distance movement spells in order to increase their mobility. But this spell uses teleportation magic, and because of teleportation interference magic, mages can't use this magic in the battlefield, which results now magician no more participate in the direct battle. Seeing him fight like this, Alfred remarks that he can dodge the attacks without using teleportation magic, and asks Olivia whether it's possible for a mage to engage in such a battle. She explains that it won't be easy for a magician to engage in such a fight, even with supporting magic, as it requires a person to be an expert in combat skills. After exchanging some compliments about our guy, Alfred takes her leave, having clearly seen the winner of the war. When she leaves, the Riverdale Duchess looks at our boy while thinking about his words of not sharing the joy of revenge with anyone. She comes here for that particular reason, but after witnessing him use magic, she notices many attributes of her faction in his style as well. Therefore, she concludes that he must be her father's disciple. Meanwhile, our MC knows both of the girls are watching him, so he is satisfied to deceive them. Then he follows the captain to go toward the office of Lord Parma, who is terrified of the upcoming consequences of the war. When our guy steps towards him, he falls back because of Adrian's fear. Instead of attacking him, he asks Lord Parma whether he is going to sign the document of surrender. Parma is concerned about what will happen to him and his family. Adrian replies that except his son, no one will be hurt, but they will be stripped of their position and wealth. At last he decides whether he prefers death over it, which makes Lord Parma agree to sign the papers. After sorting out this matter with Viscount Parma, his troops head towards the Viscount Doherty, who desperately asks for help from his other two Viscount friends because they will be next after his defeat. Outside, the war goes on, while three Viscounts discuss and worry about whether giving up on their children can stop this war. The Viscountess informs them what happens to Viscount Parma and exclaims that this war is just Adrian's excuse to fill up his empty treasure with their resources after spending all of his money to boost his military power. To address both Viscounts' concerns over the upcoming war, the Viscountess reveals her new plan, as they can't win this battle through the usual methods of warfare. Therefore, they decide to ambush the territory of our hero. For this purpose, the shock troops of three of the Viscounts arrive at the teleportation area. Dennis, the captain of the guards of Doherty, informs his master that they are going to be dispatched for teleportation at 12:10 of their country standard time. That's their plan to ambush the territory of Marinkov, which will be empty as our boy is busy on the battlefield, and take his residences as hostages in order to change this war game. Then they teleport to the Marinkov territory, and each of the Viscount's vanguards reports their arrival at the destination. But before they proceed, they hear our hero's voice welcoming them as he shows himself and his troops aboard a large flying ship. With that, he teleports all of his enemy's vanguards somewhere else. As soon as they open their eyes, they find themselves surrounded by Adrian's vanguards, with flying fortresses ahead of them, while our boy waits as if he is about to deliver a verdict today. A little while ago, Adrian waited for the enemy troops with his trusted vanguards as he predicted that they would go to such lengths. As soon as he hears a teleportation sound, he stands up from his place. To see him plan the battle like this, Perseus expresses that he is glad that he is not his enemy. Our boy, stepping forward, comments that his enemies have come up with a good strategy, but they can't use it because he is a step ahead in predicting their moves. After teleporting the enemy to a secluded area, he offers them to surrender to him. But the enemy has another plan as they decide to capture our warlord in order to end this war. Then they rush towards him in formation to attack. Meanwhile, Arzia and his troops are also ready to protect him. Instead of doing anything to his enemies, as he thinks they are not worth his time, he fires them from the flying fortress. To see it, the captain orders his troops to kill Adrian instead of capturing him. Our guy understands that they have underestimated him. So, he attacks the captain with a flame blast, which he tries to dodge with his force sword but still gets some damage. Our boy rushes towards the captain, who fumbles to not come near to him. Now the captain is scared of our guy, as a vanguard aura force emanates from him, accompanied by a fifth circle hard shield. He is petrified to see his talent as a mage. Unfazed by his fear, our mage delivers a final blow. Later, he is seen resting in his room while checking new articles regarding him. These articles fill with how Adrian ends the territorial war with 4 Viscounts in just a half day and praise his military tactics to win this war. They are winners of the war after destroying the castles of the remaining 3 Viscounts. Then he hears the maid scold Arzia, who comes inside to have a cake in dirty clothes. It reveals that the maid is none other than Catherine, who is the childhood companion of our guy. She was also bullied alongside him just because she talks to him, which traumatizes her later on. A little while ago, he made his bullies apologize to her as well. He expresses that after some time he will make Isabella and Philo apologize to her as well. She expresses that he shouldn't go to such an extent. But while he heals her arm, he expresses that he needs to take such action because she is his savior. In the present, he calls for Catherine and asks about her well-being. She happily responds that she enjoys herself every day, which satisfies him. Our MC is seen having tea with the first prince, who is truly impressed with the genius of our guy. He expresses that he gets rid of 3 houses of the Viscount, which favor the second prince, but he also gets rid of 1 house that favors the first prince. The first prince shrugs off this matter as he does it for revenge, then asks whether Luke says anything to him. Adrian replies that he gets a scolding from him when he asks whether he is going to go against any other families of his same faction. He answers that 2 other houses, like House Brooks and House Caskbell beside Raven, are his enemies as well, but he holds back because of the second prince. It shuts up Prince Luke. At that point, the first prince is glad that Adrian's action again narrows down the power gap between the 2 princes, but he expresses that he wants a complete and great victory. But the problem is they can't start the civil war as it will weaken their national security and invite enemy nations like the Crosan Empire to attack them. So they decide to betray the second prince in order to avoid such circumstances. For this purpose, our boy asks when they are going to start the operation, to which the prince replies that they need more time. Finally, he asks if there is a problem. Our guy responds with irritated expression that he can't keep up with the second prince's attempts to charm Arzia. The first prince apologizes on behalf of his brother, who is an overconfident dude who thinks that any woman can fall for him. Adrian also thinks about Arcia, who is also like an innocent child. Suddenly, the first prince suggests that he should throw a wedding. Later, he is shown walking while contemplating what the first prince suggested. He knows that this can be the best outcome, and no matter what, Arzia is designed in a way that she will say yes. but he doesn't want to do it without knowing Arzia's real feelings. At this moment, Arzia rushes to him, and he sees many unconscious men behind her. She informs him that she was just sparring with them. Meanwhile, Catherine interjects their conversation while informing Arzia that the second prince summons her, which angers our guy at the audacity of him. Arzia bluntly ordered her to tell the messenger to go back, as she doesn't like the prince's perverted gaze. Catherine tries to reason with them, but the messenger of the second prince interrupts them by greeting both of them. Adrian asks haughtily whether he surprises to see him with his fiancée. Then he coldly asks him to state his reason for coming there. The messenger hands Arzia the bouquet of flowers, inviting the prince to join him for dinner. Our jealous boy throws the flowers through teleportation magic, which leaves everyone petrified. The knight again asks Arzia about her opinion. She asks whether Adrian is invited as well. To get a negative answer, she declines the offer. Adrian interjects by asking the messenger about his family house, as he must be from some prominent family to be a royal knight. This truly stupefies the knight, and he fumbles why he wants to know about his house. Our lunatic guy answers casually that he is going to destroy his family as he has a habit to do it, because he can't kill him because of him being the royal guard of the second prince. The messenger defends himself by saying that he came there on the orders of the second prince. Then our badass boy tells him to tell the prince exactly what he says, that Arzia is his fiancée, and it will be better to not provoke him in order to maintain their good relationship. The knight relays to the second prince the same message that our boy instructed him to deliver. The prince doesn't seem happy to hear it. His knight suggests him wait for a time being, as he can have Arzia when he becomes king. He agrees to his knight's suggestion, as he needs to teach lessons to our boy as well. Now he has another reason to become a king. On the other side, our dude finally fills his account with the cash of 42 trillion roots. Besides the cash, they also seize every precious thing from the enemy territory as the war trophy. The most precious item he gets out of all this is the celestial sword hilt, which is made from orichalcum. Only 500 grams of this rare mineral have been produced in a year in the Holy Land of Everhill. He keeps the hilt aside as he has planned to visit Holy Land already, as he might search for the sword. Meanwhile, he needs to defeat a monster in the game. This vampire is kicked by Arzia, which satisfies our boy because he thinks he looks similar to the second prince. He enjoys killing the monster in a game, which he neglects for a few days because he is busy catching up with everything going on in his real life. Now, he needs to level up, and for this purpose, he leaves the unnecessary things to his subordinates. He left the matter of recruiting talented people to Arzia, who can do this with the help of all-seeing glasses. Meanwhile, he needs to level up in order to reach the 8th circle. Then Arzia informs him that she discovers a new talent. He asks her to recruit her, to which she answers that she leaves the matter to her attendants. However, what boggles him is knowing that special talent of that person is a divine power. In other words, she has the talent to become a saint. This talented person is the 15-year-old girl named Everil who has the special power to become a saint. Basically, Rondell follows one religion called the Church of Sepia, which follows the goddess of Sepia, who is known to be the creator of Rondell. The headquarters of the Church of Sepia is the Holy Land of Everhill. This place is ruled by 3 authorities. The king manages the churches, the paladin is in charge of the army, and the oracle manages the priest, who has the power of divine miracle. After learning about the girl with divine power, he rushes to his castle, where she is in the hall of the Institute for the Gifted. He is greeted by Everil and Eric there, and he introduces himself to her as well. He knows that the girl's family is not well off because she works in the convenience store. After checking her abilities by himself, he compliments Arzia for picking the right person. After settling down, he informs Everil that she won't be able to realize her dream to become an administrator officer because she doesn't have the capabilities to do so. He throws a bomb to her that she has the ability to become a holy saint, which stuns her. He explains that not anyone can become a saint by just pure talent, because only 2 saints are chosen by the goddess every 50 years. So, she needs to be highly capable to be one of them. He adds that he will help her become one, as there will soon be a contest for selecting the saint, and he wants her to participate. All of this new information baffles her. To see her uncertain expression, he explains that she can learn many things, including etiquette, theology, and divine magic, in order to become a saint. She is still nervous to listen to all of this information. Then he informs her about the monthly salary and her allowances, which will not go to waste if he is able to make a saint from his side to boost his power. He tries to console her that she can become a saint instead of an administrative officer. Both of our professional careers. Eric also consoles her on his behalf, which calms her down a little. To see it, his little devil of a mind decides to give her responsibility to Eric, who has great political skills. So he informs her to stay there like it is her home, while her parents can visit her as well. Then he turns to Eric and gives her responsibility to him, as he senses the closeness between them, which Eric complies happily. Now he is really excited about the contest for the Saints, as it is his next goal. Adrian leaves his new recruit in the care of Eric to adjust to her new environment, while he concentrates on his main goal to level up. Together with Arzia and Shadow, he is able to defeat another beast and reaches level 208, but he is frustrated to see his slow growth. It's not a problem he can tackle at the moment, because he needs a team of 5 or more to level up quickly, rather than just Arzia and an eagle for support. Not only this, he has another problem on his plate as well. Nowadays the game becomes crowded with the players, which makes it harder for him to level up. When they are going to somewhere else, someone approaches our player and asks about his secret to get the eagle as a supporter. He makes an excuse that it is just a wild beast, which he tames with magic, which shoos her off. As he moves forward, he considers how to avoid drawing unnecessary attention to himself. And suddenly, he gets the idea that he should buy Chronicle Online. He assumes the company must be undervalued as its players are mostly commoners. But he is wrong, as the company's total worth is 102 trillion. Then he ponders about other options, like making a workshop and letting slaves work in it. He can also use his last administrator right, but rejects this idea as well. Then he gets another idea that is most reasonable and doesn't involve buying a game. That idea is to monopolize the hunting ground. For this purpose, he goes to the Black Dragon Guild. In the executive office of the guild, some players discuss the particular restriction their respective countries have applied to them, which makes it harder for them to play games and level up. While they discuss it, someone informs the guildmaster about the arrival of our guy, who is level 200 player. Some guild members decline to meet him, as they think that he is just a random person who wants to join the guild. However, the person again insists on meeting Adrian, as he has brought 10 decathlon hearts, which leaves the guildmaster awestruck. The person also adds that our boy is equipped with other expensive items as well, besides decathlon hearts, which are quite expensive items. At that, he is allowed to enter the guild. The guildmaster, Penny, introduces herself, who is totally impressed by the rich aura our guy carries. He introduces himself with his previous life name. Without beating the bush, our boy requests that they let him rent their hunting ground, which they have monopolized. To sense her confusion, he clarifies that he wants them for himself only, as other users will be restricted from entering into it. She nervously thinks that she never hears something like this. Unfazed by her thought, he continues explaining his offer that they will be paid in cash 5 times higher than what they are earning from said hunting ground. She casually asks which hunting ground he wants to rent. He names the Kaltern Chimera dungeon, which stuns her totally because it is the most profitable hunting ground, which is visited by almost 200 players on a daily basis. She calculates and tells him that he will have to pay $10 million for daily rent, which he accepts, but on the condition that no other player will be entered there. She suspects that there must be some precious items, or he is given a quest there, but he replies that he just wants to level up without interruption. She still insists that he must be doing a challenge. To shut this lady up, our guy offers to pay in advance, which brightens her eyes. She asks how long he plans to rent their land, and he explains that he'll rent it for a month. If it doesn't work out, he'll rent another hunting ground until he reaches the maximum level. This awakens the greed in the guildmaster, and she immediately serves our player cup tea. The guild members excitedly check the money they receive in their account. Later, they instantly empty the Chimera hunting ground for Adrian to use it. As a result of renting the hunting ground, he is able to reach level 220 within a month and is excited to reach level 250. But now, once again, a problem arises as Perseus informs him that the contest for selecting the saint is going to be held sooner than they predicted. To learn that the contest is going to be held within this month tenses him a little first, but then he uses this situation in his favor, as the sudden contest will also decrease the competition. All he needs to do is make a winner strategy for their participant. While being asked by Perseus, he explains that he already starts working on it as he already sent the donation to the archdiocese in her name in order to make her representative from their country to this contest. For this purpose, he is also going to let her greet the archbishop tomorrow when he will visit him. Afterwards, he is going to get the favor of the royal family by his side. Perseus raises a question about whether she will be able to act according to their expectations. He answers that there is nothing to worry about as Eric will be at her side, whom Perseus calls a crafty snake because of his political skill. Then Perseus shows him the data he collects about the contestant of the competition, in which these 3 of them are strongest. These 3 are Grace High Elven, who is the 7th Circle Supreme Elementalist, Evelyn Francis, who is an Aura Master, and the 3rd one is Judy, who is commoner like Everil and seems like an easy opponent. He notices that Judy is sponsored by Olivia, but ignores it for now. While checking their status, he admits to Perseus that those are quite powerful candidates who can give tough competition to their contestant. He expresses that he wants to give up while checking the competitors, but he consoles his right-hand man that he is expecting the strong contestant, which raises a remark from Perseus that he is taking matters quite seriously. He admits that while claiming that he is not going to give up the title of Saint Creator, after completing his work, he decides to go play a game. But Perseus stops him while asking the question how much he gives the donation to the temple, as they are not the people who can sway with the money. At that, our guy keeps smiling mysteriously. We get to know that he gives $10 trillion to the temple when Olivia gets to know about it. After knowing that he is a sponsor of Everil and donates such a large amount of money for her sake, this archmage expression turns to intrigue she holds for our guy. Looking at his laughing face, his companions assume that she must be planning something. The next day, the archbishop reaches the Ardude's castle and praises Everil for her efficient use of divine magic. Then Adrian asks the archbishop to consider Judy as well, because Olivia makes a request to form an alliance with them. The archbishop accepts his offer. He now plans to make Everil select for the competition, and then they plan for her to compete against Judy. At that, the archbishop comments that Olivia doesn't want to compete against them as they are from the same faction. In reality, our guy himself wants this alliance, but Olivia saves him from this effort. Now he is in front of the second prince in order to get the approval from the royal family. Prince Luke immediately accepts his request because it will also increase the status of their country if Everil will be the winner. So he assures him that he is going to talk to the king about it. Adrian expects this much and is about to leave. But the prince calls him to inform him that Count Otis's daughter and Count Akers have gone missing. He is totally baffled because it can affect the position of first prince because Count Akers is an aura master second to Marquis Vincent. To see his stunned expression, Prince comments that he must not hear the news, as he himself got to know about it an hour ago. To shrug the prince suspicious of his inner turmoil, he congratulates the second prince while laughing. Then he instantly goes to the first prince to get the details of the incident. After settling down themselves, the first prince explains that both Count Otis and Count Akers are not only cousins, but also like brothers with the same political views. When Count Akers gets to know about Michelle's solo trip, he decides to escort her. Adrian guesses that the destination she travels to must be dangerous for an aura master to play a bodyguard. At that point, the prince agrees with him by telling him that she travels to the Prius Republic, where the war can be broken at any moment by the Brigham Empire. He desperately asks him about her reason to travel to such a dangerous destination. Prince explains that, as he might know, Michelle is quite obsessed with Lucas's curiosity. After getting to know that the Prius Republic discovers it, she impulsively decides to travel there. With dread, he realizes that it must be his fault that she goes missing. Meanwhile, our main female lead is enjoying her meal at her home. The prince informs him that he has contacted the Prius Republic for their safe return, as well as contact secretly with special forces with the National Intelligence Department to rescue them. Adrian thinks that there is a low chance of quietly handling this matter and avoiding diplomatic conflict. But it is good to see that the prince is going to any measure to rescue his allies. While reaching a decision, he gets up from his place and offers his services for this rescue mission. The prince is confused, so he clarifies that he will go to rescue both of them secretly, while requesting him to help him hide his identity. First, the prince looks a little tense, but nevertheless, he accepts his offer. He tells him that he will send him their likely last location through the device, and requests him to bring them back safely. Now our guy needs to smuggle himself into the Prius Republic silently. Meanwhile, Michelle and her uncle are seen running away from the vanguards of the Prius Republic. They particularly attack Michelle, but Count Akers saves her from this attack. Now both of them are surrounded by the enemies. Count Akers tries to reason with them that they don't have any animosity towards their nation, as they are just traveling. Besides, he won't bring a lady with him if he comes there to go against them. But the vanguards don't buy the excuse because Michelle tries to get closer to the curiosity. Finding no choice, Count Akers tells Michelle to run away to their left, as she might possibly be able to teleport after running away 300 meters from them. But she is concerned about him. He answers that he will escape easily if she is gone from there. Although she is reluctant to do such a thing, Count Akers angrily orders her to go, which makes her comply as she runs away to the opposite side. As soon as they see her running, they run to get her. But Count Akers tries to distract them by attacking one of the vanguards. But before he can attack him, someone else arrives there and injures that vanguard. Count Akers turns to that person and recognizes them. Meanwhile, our guy and his aura master are sitting in the flying fortress Icarus, which is hidden by the invisibility spell. He is quite annoyed at Michelle for doing such a drastic action, even though he blames himself for her actions as well. His thoughts are interrupted by Arcia's voice, who informs him that she has found them, which baffles him with her fast performance. While teleporting to their location, he assumes they might resolve this problem earlier than expected. When they reach there, they are startled to see a different army helping Michelle and Count Akers to save them from the Prius vanguards. They are the Knights of the Prius Revolutionary Army. Arcia asks about their next course of action. He answers while wearing his mask and getting down that they are going to help them. First, our dude attacks them with his Flame Blast spell, which ignites the fire in the battleground. Then, our Aura Master slays and injures numerous vanguards with the power of her sword. After a while, both of our MC and FMC appear there victorious. Adrian offers them to go home with him. Then he heals Count Akers with the recovery spell as well. As soon as he has done it, Michelle immediately recognizes him, but he signals her to stay mum about it. Her face brightens, and she pulls her uncle as she is eager to go home. However, they are stopped by the vanguard from the revolutionary force that helped them earlier. The captain says that they need to inquire about something from Michelle. Adrian immediately understands that they helped them because of their own motives. Then he turns to her and asks, since she has access to the Louis curiosity, whether she can tell them if it is real or not, which leaves our guy totally flabbergasted. He is looking keenly at them as Michelle answers that from the outside it looks real, but when she looks deeper into it, it looks like a poor imitation. The captain comments that there is a chance that their command's guess is right, as someone discovers the real curiosity and creates this fake one. While witnessing the scene in front of him, Adrian ponders the possibility of killing them all but stops himself, as he can't just attack them without knowing the strength and identity of the force. The captain continues his investigation and asks how she accessed the palace of the president to get the curiosity. She answers that she has already guessed that the curiosity is hidden in the virtual world. So she accessed Louis's devices and searched for his frequently visited domain, which is likely a place where he discovered the curiosity. After listening to her reasoning, our guy concludes that she might be the real owner of curiosity if he doesn't access it first. Meanwhile, the captain comments that she has a great talent as she has access to Louis's devices. She answers that she has done it through some acquaintance, which means she has a hacker for this purpose. At that, our MC intervenes by saying that they need to leave before someone spots them, but the captain stops them as their commander summons them. Then they are teleported to the northern glacier of the Prius Republic. Our guy starts to look at the status of the knights around him and is stunned to see that all of them are Aura Masters. Now comes to the commander himself, named as Israel Oscar Pruis, who is the former heir of the royal family of Pruis Republic, and now is the commander of the Revolutionary Force and a 7th Circle Archmage. The first thing this former prince comments is that he is disappointed to see the aurora of the northern region, as he has heard it would be colored like a rainbow. Meanwhile, our guy checks his complete profile, and he has numbers of high and very high abilities besides having a positive status towards them. He then greets Michelle and Count Akers, who thank them for saving them. Meanwhile, our boy is thinking with annoyance that it is normal to do this as a human being, but this person must have ulterior motives to do that. His thoughts are interrupted by Israel, who greets both of them with their names and titles. He even apologizes for catching them off guard as they follow each other on social media. When both of our main characters reveal their identities, Count Akers is totally baffled to find someone on the second prince's side for their rescue. Unfazed by Count Akers' outburst, he turns to Israel and asks about his method of recognizing him. Israel comments slyly that it is a trade secret, but when our guy calls him Your Highness and he asks how he knows who he is, he also replies that it is a trade secret. To see him crossing his line, the guards go towards our guy but are stopped by their master. Israel answers that he recognizes him, as they are a famous duo of a male archmage and a female aura master. Then he asks how he figured out his identity. Our guy bluffs that he has always been interested in the Prius Republic and the Revolutionary Force. This prompts a comment from the commander that he wouldn't want our boy on his bad side. Then he turns to Michelle and asks whether she has copied data of fake curiosity of Louis. The commander even offers her to pay a price if she shares the information regarding it. After some reluctance, she starts to share what she has observed as fake curiosity. She explains that this fake curiosity is designed in a way that the person can access it step by step, so she doesn't access those data, which Louis hasn't discovered himself yet. She ambiguously adds that the information she has found in Curiosity is about the technology they are already using. At that, the commander clearly states his interest in the data on Vanguard Force equipment, which is basic information about the Curiosity. Michelle is reluctant to answer it because her one wrong move can cause a war. To sense her hesitance, Commander explains that he is a descendant of the royal family, but his father has gone through great struggle to establish a democratic system in this country. Meanwhile, our boy thinks about the wrong way the democratic system is established in the Prius Republic. The late king of this country has good intentions to achieve democratization for his people, but people like Catro have manipulated this system as the people of Prius didn't have much awareness about it. Consequently, this country falls into the hands of a dictatorship. Now Israel explains that he plans to awaken awareness in his people and establish the correct democratic system in his country. From this, our boy concludes that although this fallen prince has a long way to go, His motives seem decent compared to the current government. Meanwhile, the commander asks once again to Michelle, who responds that she can't decide such a sensitive matter by herself. The commander decides to take serious measures. Now, the Count, Akers, and others are on high alert. On the other hand, our boy ponders whether he should help them as the former citizen of Korea and decides to step ahead. He asks Israel whether it won't be about Lucas's curiosity, then would he like to shake hand with him. Indeed, our boy can't leave a chance to make a business out of this scenario. Commander corrects that he needs that blueprint of Vanguard force equipment. At that, he scoffs and explains that he is already planning to manufacture Vanguard equipment, so he obviously has the blueprint. Ignoring the baffled faces of his fellow countrymen, he explains further to the prince that he has a high-quality blueprint, which is usually produced in his country. The commander is happy to hear it, as their country has magnificent quality Vanguard equipment. Then he asks for the prototype. Our guy shows him the force converters, which is truly appreciated by Israel. While checking and complimenting the converter, he asks in surprise about his reason for revealing his state secret to other country rebels. Our dude slyly replies that he has done it because he has a liking for them. This prompts a hearty laugh from the commander, who is happy to capture Adrian's interest. While our greedy guy is more interested in receiving a decent amount from this deal, this said deal is interrupted by Count Akers, who reminds our boy that it is illegal to trade technology. Our dude counters this problem by saying that everyone present there just shuts their mouth, as each of them holds the secrets of others. For example, they know the identity of the revolutionary force, Michelle acquiring the curiosity, and now his illegal trade. All of them should just keep their mouths shut. This excites Michelle, who ensures Adrian that his secret is safe with her. Now he turns to the commander to discuss the payment, as he needs to refill his account once again after investing a large amount for Everil. After a while, they return to their country, and now Michelle and Count Akers are getting a scolding from the first prince, who is quite cross because of their stupid decision to travel to Prius Republic. After getting a good scolding, Count Akers' stupidity asks Adrian and Arya for their presence there. The prince facepalms to hear it while explaining that they are on his side. The idiot of a count doesn't understand it. And finally, Michelle yells at him that they are just pretending to follow the second prince. Our boy is quite stunned to witness the density of Count Akers, who is fighting all of his life. Then Michelle turns to Adrian and winks at him, which awakens the jealousy in our Aura Master, who suggests that she should kill her. Adrian somewhat agrees with her but decides to keep an eye on her for now, as he recognizes her fake curiosity. When they are going away, Count Akers asks them to have tea with him as a token of his gratitude toward them, which he tries to decline. At this moment, someone calls for the prince and asks him to watch the news. It is revealed in the news that the Brigham Empire has declared war on the Prius Republic, which is criticized by Louis himself, as nowadays he is favored by everyone because of his discovery of the curiosity. After a while, Adrian analyzes that both countries have a ratio of 4.6 of their winning chances. The prince comments that he is giving a lot of credit to the Prius Republic, as the Brigham Empire has a clear chance of winning. However, our hero points out the defensive advantages of the Prius Republic, noting that the Brigham Empire must first cross the ocean and then navigate through closed terrain to invade their enemy's territory. While looking at his screen, he hopes that this war will end by bringing justice to the Prius Republic with a minimum of casualties. Besides, he wants the Revolutionary Army to crush the corrupted dictatorship of the Prius Republic in this process. He, at this moment, feels Count Akers staring at him. He asks him to tell what is on his mind. Count Akers accuses him of knowing about this war beforehand. This is the reason he shook hands with the Revolutionary Army. The prince asks about the meaning behind Count's words. Our guy makes an excuse that he has some connection with the Revolutionary Army, so he got help from them in order to rescue Michelle and Count Akers. He further explains that they are following each other on social media, which prompts a laugh from him. Adrian continues, stating that after meeting them, he is convinced they are more than just a rebel group. The prince agrees with him, adding that he hopes this war will bring opportunities for them as well. At that, he suggests to the prince not to give any statement about the war, to which he agrees. Then the prince dismisses all of them while turning to Count Akers and Michelle. He warns them not to reveal the affiliation of our boy and girl to the first prince, because they are going to be their trump card. He even suggests Count Akers to stay in the palace in case he tells anyone about it somehow. He agrees with him, and Michelle also offers to stay beside him, which makes him happy. Then Michelle turns to Adrian and flirts with him, saying that this opportunity helps her see him and Arja frequently, which burns our girl with jealousy. Finally, the war between the Brigham Empire and the Prius Republic breaks out. The Brigham Empire immediately surrounds the Prius Republic with their troops. On the other hand, the Prius Republic strengthens its defense, taking advantage of their home ground. Though both countries don't clash yet, it is expected that they will clash within a few days. While people have their eyes on the conflict between the two countries, our guy is going to appear on a TV show. This show is called Anthony, and for their 10th anniversary, they hold a match between mage versus knight. So, they invite our dude to the show as the representative of the mage. The idea that our hero is going to appear on the TV show is suggested by Eric. He actually compares Everil with the other contestants, and concludes that she doesn't have the recognition like the other contestants. So, he shows the TV show proposal to him, and makes him accept it for this purpose. The host compliments our handsome guy's looks, and he jokes that it is all thanks to his mother. When he is asked about his father's looks, he casually answers that his father wouldn't be able to marry his mother if it weren't for his noble status. The host brings up the topic of knight versus mage and asks for his opinion. He responds by saying it's an interesting topic. The host then adds that many experts believe this battle is disadvantageous for him as a mage. He replies that he will try to clear the common stereotypes about mages through this opportunity. Then, the host introduces the knight representative named Count Felix from the Lucius Kingdom, who is also an aura master. Adrian thinks that he looks quite familiar, but can't put his finger on it. Meanwhile, the host asks Felix for his reason for joining the show. He answers that he thinks it is going to be fun. The host asks another question about him being so calm, contrary to the fact that he is going against Adrian Lawrence. He arrogantly answers that Duke Riverdale just praises his disciple because of his love for Adrian. Otherwise, he is going to show our guy the reality today. At that moment, Adrian suddenly realizes that this person reminds him of Cedric, not only by looks, but by attitude as well. The host comments that he is declaring a war and turns to our boy for his opinion. He slyly says that he can't say much as he has never heard this aura master's name before, which irritates Felix with this indirect insult. While both opponents glare at each other, the host has a giddy feeling that his show is going to get a huge hit. Then they start the sparring match, which is held in the arena of duel on the island located in the middle of a lake. The host introduces the judges and then turns to the contestants. As Felix is ready in his Vanguard equipment, the host points out that he should take it off because it will be unfair to Adrian, who is going to fight barehanded. Felix haughtily expresses that he will take it off if Adrian says so, but our confident boy stops him, adding a taunt that there is no way he is going to lose to a newbie. Felix points out that he is a newbie himself, but Adrian declines this statement by saying that they are not equal. Then the countdown begins, and Felix instantly rushes at our dude, but he is defeated in mid-stance and knocked down immediately. It seems like Adrian has cast a 6th circle laser cannon spell on his opponent in order to defeat him. Now it is time to act on his plan, and he immediately asks Everil to come and heal Felix. She uses Angel Feather's divine magic, which surprises everyone present there. The host asks about Everil, who comes as the medical aid from Adrian's side, and whether she is a bishop-level priest at such a young age. He clarifies that she hasn't entered the church yet, as she is learning divine magic from Archbishop Fred. He adds further that it is her pure talent that helps her cast the Angel Feather's effect. To see the host's confused expression, he finally reveals that she is going to be a candidate of the saint from his country, which surprises everyone but makes them appreciate her. He has predicted such a reaction in advance and plans everything accordingly. Then the camera focuses on the cute face of the saint candidate, who introduces herself as medical aid. While looking at her expression, our guy thinks that Eric has done a great job. As expected, that show gains Everil recognition as people are more respectful to her, as she might be the next saint. However, all of this attention makes her uncomfortable, and on her way to home, she reflects on how her life has changed from being a part-time worker at a convenience store. Later, she goes home and greets her parents, but she stops upon spotting very selfish relatives at home. She doesn't like their presence there while they try to be lovey-dovey with her. Her cousins shamelessly comment about her branded clothes and accessories. She angrily asks their reason for being there. Her uncle makes an excuse that he comes to financially help them with a business plan. The important thing about this plan is that if people know this business is run by the Everil family, it is bound to be successful. On the other hand, her parents support her and firmly tell her uncle that if they want to start a business, they will do it themselves. At that, her uncle accuses them of being cold-hearted. Her father reminds him that he is the one who abandoned them in debt 4 years ago. He shamelessly responds that he came back to make it up to them. Both brothers argue for a while about what happened 4 years ago, and her uncle is persistent that it's not his fault. Finally, having enough of it, Everil tells them to just get out and pretends that they never exist. But they start to accuse her of bad behavior. Suddenly, someone else enters into the picture and calls her relatives parasites. It is none other than Adrian, who is reported by Everil's guards immediately. Everil uncle hesitantly greets him, but he has cast a spell on them which freezes them at their place. He casually asks if they have any idea what the perk of being a noble is. Her uncle replies that he can't imagine such a thing. By demonstrating the said perk, He makes him levitate in the air, while declaring that he can do whatever he wants with lowly people like them. Then he kicks Everill's cousins, forcing them to immediately apologize to him. He asks if they have any idea what their mistake was. They reply that they're apologizing for being blinded by money, but he deadpans that it's because they messed with his people, and indirectly declaring war on him. Then, he orders his guards to arrest everyone who are still trying to apologize to him. Afterwards, he turns to Everill's parents and informs them that he will pay off all their debt, including interest, and offers them a place in the castle with their daughter, which they reluctantly accept. When he turns to Everill with an assuring expression, her face turns red. While looking at the back of our guy talking with her parents, Everill feels something for him, but doesn't want to act on it as he has a fiancé. So he decides to be her aide in the future. Meanwhile, in the Francis Manor of the Brigham Empire, Duke Francis is watching the show in which Everill has appeared. He is quite annoyed by her accomplishments, as she could become a hindrance to his daughter, Evelyn, in her quest to become a saint. Then he calls for an assassin to finish her off. The next day, when our busy guy is working in his office, he gets a message from Olivia. He immediately opens the message, which contains a warning for him as House Francis is showing suspicious movements. Meanwhile, some of the guards in the emergency dispatch waiting room of our guy's castle are discussing how this job gives them high payment, comfort, and other benefits. Then they discuss a guard named Sir Damien, who wept because of their master's generosity. They then turn to the said guy, who is looking down. They think he takes offense at their words and go to console him, but that person is actually an intruder. He looks at them with a maniacal expression, saying he has forgotten his own name. Before they can understand the situation, another guard, who is also an intruder, stops the him from getting close to first one. This intruder scolds the first one for revealing their identity. To listen to them, the guards shout for them to reveal their identities, but before they can take action, the person disguised as Damien casts a spell on them, making them forget this small incident. Then, once again, Fairman tells Damien not to rely too much on his mind-controlling ability, reminding him that their target is Everill, not Adrian, so there's no need to reveal their identities. Damien asks why he's extra worried today. He answers that it's because he made eye contact with our boy before coming there. He recalls the moment when Adrian was in the crowd, greeting his people. Suddenly, Adrian looked directly at him, and it felt like he was peeking into his soul. The incident made him shudder, but he shrugged it off, thinking he might be overreacting. At that moment, they hear an announcement about the intruders in the East Wing, which includes 5 assassins. Now Adrian and the other guards are fighting them, and the guards are requested to go help. While going ahead, the intruders reveal that this is part of their plan, and they head towards Everill's room. As soon as they enter her room, Everill's guards inform them to go help Adrian as they are the part of the reaction unit. But they make an excuse, saying they've come to help Everill, as she might not have enough guards. Before they come any closer, her bodyguard warns them that no one can approach her except the guards assigned by our guy. However, the intruders don't listen, and one of them draws his aura sword, which Everill's guards recognize immediately. They rush toward them to defend Everill, but they are frozen by the mind-controlling spell from Damien. Then Fairman rushes to Everill to slay her, but he is thrown back by Everill herself, leaving everyone shocked. It is revealed that our MC has planned this all along, as Arzia has disguised herself as Everill. The intruders wonder aloud whether their plan has been revealed. Our boy interjects that he figured it out when they made eye contact. He then calls both of the intruders by their names, Gregory and Auguste. Both of them belong to an organization called Blue Moon, which is something of a legend from fairy tales. They decide to act on Plan B and reveal their true identities. They also warn our guy and girl that they might not make it out alive after seeing their real faces. Their statement prompts a comment from our guy, saying they're so cool, while Arja calls them just rebellious teenagers. Basically, the organization of Blue Moon is just a legend with no proof of its existence. The people of Rondell, including our guy, think that they are just the villains of their childhood stories. But after looking at the members of the organization, he realizes that the organization not only exists, but also bears high-level aura masters and elementalists. Now, looking at them, our guy has a number of guesses regarding them, like they might be affiliated with Duke Francis or using his residence. Whatever it is, there must be some hidden motives of Blue Moon, and he demands them to tell him that. At that moment, Auguste is about to say something, but is stopped by Gregory. Adrian concludes that there must be another puppeteer who is behind all of this scheme. He also informs them that he knows many things about them, which leaves them no choice but to kill him in order to hide their identity. For this purpose, Auguste reveals his elemental spirit, which leaves them in awe. The arrogant villain laughs at their expressions, but his laughter stops with the forceful attack of our boy. Our dude arrogantly supplies that they are not the only people on this planet with special talent. On the other side, Gregory is interested to know whether he is a magic swordsman. He thinks that it is not the case, as his staff is actually an Istro arming sword, which he uses to shoot force charged with aura. Meanwhile, Gregory still thinks of our guy as a magic swordsman, and concludes that this must be a reason for him to engage in close combat, despite being a mage. Adrian decides to let them have a misunderstanding about him, and with a snap of his fingers, he summons a shadow eagle, revealing that he is a beast tamer as well. The shadow bites Augusta's leg, and he uses the mind control spell on them for counterattack, but they are unaffected by it. He angrily tries again, but it is no use. He is totally flabbergasted to see them unaffected by Augusta's mind control spell, as a grandmaster like Francis is not even spared by it. Basically, his defense ability in the game is at a higher level, which helps protect them from Augusta's mind-controlling technique. Suddenly, he realizes that Auguste doesn't have any combat skills besides mind control. At this moment, he understands that Adrian has some ability to see right through them. He looks at our guy, who is famous by many names around the globe, but after meeting him personally, he concludes that the most suitable name is that he is a monster. Intimidated by our hero, he throws his weapon and waits for their fate at our boy's hands. Actually, Adrian doesn't have any intention of killing them but feels satisfied when he checks their status, which clearly shows that they don't have the courage to fight. Then he extends his hand, and both of the intruders are afraid that they might get hurt, but he heals them with recovery magic. Adrian explains that he doesn't want to make an enemy of Blue Moon, so he doesn't intend to kill them. Then he requests them to arrange a meeting with their leader, to which they agree. He also apologizes for killing their troops, but they don't care about them, as they belong to Sir Francis anyway. Then they leave, apologizing for the intrusion. After they have left, he asks Arzia whether he looks like a big deal. She answers ambiguously that it went interesting. Time passes, and finally, it is the day for the Holy Land of Everhill, where they are going to start the contest for searching for the 2 leaders of the Order, which will continue for a month. Meanwhile, both Everil and Adrian are watching the broadcast on TV, while Adrian's mind is occupied with Blue Moon, who hasn't contacted them yet. Now the day has finally arrived for the opening ceremony of the contest to be held in the Holy Land of Everhill. When Adrian enters, everyone murmurs their opinions about our prodigy, summarizing that he is not someone to be underestimated. Meanwhile, the saints arrive as the King of the Holy Land announces the contest, which features 15 candidates for the Oracle and 11 for the Paladin. This month-long contest will be broadcast on TV and internet. He reveals that the first challenge of the contest is mercenary activities centered on subjugating monsters. The candidates can form teams of 5 people, which can include 2 Automasters and 2 Third Circle or lower mages. Moreover, their powers will be sealed, except for their divine power. At the end of the announcement, Adrian greets the 3 leaders of Everhill and the pinnacle of religion with his companions. He needs Everil to catch the eye of the current oracle, Sharon. To greet them back, Sharon slyly comments on the good looks of our guy and expresses that she might hit on him if she were a bit younger. Due to her magic, she looks a lot younger than her real age. Then he introduces Everil to her, and she is immediately impressed by her talent. He even clarifies that he doesn't intend to have political gain from this contest because he won't participate if she doesn't. They are happy to leave a good impression on the Oracle and other leaders, which is a success. While going ahead, he plans to meet Olivia when he spots Duke Francis's crew. He greets him while expressing that he received his gift. He also slyly feigns ignorance by saying that he heard about the incident in his territory. Meanwhile, Francis thinks of the assassin from the Blue Moon, who immediately took retirement from their job and even suggests that he not go against Adrian Lawrence. The incident on Francis' territory was planned by our guy, who accidentally crashed one of his flying fortresses in Francis's territory. Then he turns to Everil and asks her to go easy on his candidates, to which she replies with an attitude too big for her size. To irritate Francis a little more, he informs him that he is going to meet with Gregory and Auguste, which angers him beyond measure. As Francis's mood is now completely ruined, he leaves them. To see the exchange made Everil awestruck by our hero's influence. He shakes off her compliments while reminding her to be confident as a candidate of the saint. At this moment, he meets with Olivia, and they both exchange greetings. Then she introduces her candidate, Judy, who greets them as well. Adrian can see that this woman has a special ability of the great saint, which he doesn't fully understand, as it might be superior to being a saint. Afterward, they start discussing the first round and the suitable people they are going to team with their respective candidates. As Olivia's candidate was already the first-level priestess, she can use 1 extra divine magic compared to other candidates. However, Olivia expresses that she doesn't have the right people to team up with her, as they don't have mages with real-life experience in this modern age. At that, our boy offers to have his men at her service, which brightens her mood. He knows all along that it is her plan to make him offer his men to her. Anyway, he is still persistent about sending third-level mages to her. At that, she expresses that she might be the only person to gain an advantage from their alliance. He declines her claim by pointing out the people around them are now feeling pressure because both of them have a good relationship. Then Adrian asks whether the magic swordsman is going to count as one person for the first round. Meanwhile, Sharon is checking the team members of Everil and is totally amused to see a person who is a magic swordsman. She laughs while commenting that now she might get complaints from other contestants. Her subordinate informs her that they didn't state in the rules that both aura and magic can't be mixed. He is going to correct the rules, but she stops him, saying it might be part of the competition for someone to find a loophole in their rules. Now this old Sharon lady is also interested in our guy. Finally, the first round of mercenary activities has started, and Lopez is seen protecting Everil from the beasts. During the contest, the Saint, along with 2 Aura Masters and 2 Mages, will be registered as mercenaries. Each candidate's performance is recorded and broadcast on different channels. This way, people can watch the performance of their favorite candidates on their preferred channels. Meanwhile, some people have offered the beasts they hunted to Everil to help her clear the quest. They even start fighting over who will offer their catch to her first. She turns to her aide and asks whether it is even allowed. During the broadcast of the contest, people are initially more interested in watching the elves because of their beauty. But it turns out that being pretty doesn't automatically make you entertaining, and viewers quickly lose interest. So they start looking at the other contestants. Among them is Everil, who manages to capture their attention by actually showing growth and effort throughout the contest. In contrast, there are other contestants like nobles wouldn't dare get their hands dirty with mercenary work. They leave all of these kinds of work to their teammates, which makes Everil's hands-on approach all the more refreshing to watch. Meanwhile, the real mercenaries, who are surprisingly enjoying Everil's performance, declare they are offering her their beasts. They explain that they are doing it because Everil treats their profession with respect, unlike others who just look down on them. One of the mercenary even comes up to Everil and reassures her that they are helping out of their own will, so she doesn't need to feel any pressure. Despite his scary look, she still healed him, and his appreciation for her only deepens. Then they offer the beast to her, but she is reluctant to accept it, knowing it is their livelihood. One of them proudly states that they are doing this to clear their image in front of the world. If she becomes a saint, people will look at them in a different light. Then they start cheering for her, and she claims that she is going to do her best. Because of the incident, her ratings are higher than the other candidates. Meanwhile, our guy is meeting with the Archbishop to show him the holy relic of Orichalcum. While inspecting the relic, the Archbishop informs him that it is not an ordinary holy relic, as he can sense divine power flowing within it. Adrian suggests if there is a way to revive it. The Archbishop confirms it, explaining that its part of the magic is damaged, but they can revive it as the remaining magic is still flowing. He then agrees to find a technician to fix it. Adrian is still curious whether they need to donate it to the church. The Archbishop declines his offer, saying that although it would be good for publicity, but it is better to use a functional relic to benefit Everil. Afterwards, they bid goodbye, while Fred promising to find someone to fix the relic. Now, Adrian is determined to do everything in his power to help Everil win, knowing that others are also putting in effort behind the scenes. Meanwhile, someone is watching the broadcast of Everil getting help from the mercenaries. She is determined to do her best as well. The next day, he meets one of the top 3 technicians, Kobe Bentry, who is a master engineer. They greet each other, but suddenly, our guy finds Kobe staring at him. Kobe explains that as a technician, he can't help but analyze the objects and equipment he sees, and it is difficult to analyze Adrian's robe. Listening to this, Adrian concludes that Kobe is the right person for his work. Then he shows him the Orichalcum hilt. Kobe inspects it while commenting that it must be the hilt of a holy sword, which is confirmed by Adrian. Our hero then informs him that he wants him to fix it. Upon further inspection, Kobe realizes that he can do it since it is almost in its original condition. Then he asks whether he should use mithril for making a blade for it, as Orichalcum is difficult to acquire. Adrian comments mysteriously that he doesn't need a blade, as it can be used as a weapon as it is. To listen to Adrian's demand, Kobe explains that this is not an ordinary sword, but is called a holy sword with a number of other nicknames. Kobe explains further that after being discovered by our guy, it can be the 7th holy sword, as the world only holds 6 holy swords, so Adrian should reconsider giving it a blade. Then he points out the divine bloodstone on the hilt and explains that it will be the source to create the divine lights in the sword. Our guy asks whether it will be like a magic sword. Kobe explains that it will be more advanced than any magic sword, as it can convert every kind of energy into the blade, whether it be elementals, aura, magic, or divine power. This master engineer continues to boast about how he has all this knowledge because he studies the literature regarding holy relics. Now Adrian understands why people think it is just a piece of orichalcum. Then our dude asks the price of the sword once it is repaired. Kobe estimates that it is so valuable that he can buy a city with it. Our greedy hero is quite giddy to hear this and asks the master engineer to fix it immediately. Kobe answers that he needs some materials, including a bloodstone, for the task. Then our rich guy shows him a generous amount of money, which Kobe says is too much for his labor. He explains that he can use it to buy the materials and cover the labor cost. Besides, if everything goes well, he will be paid double in the end. Kobe accepts the amount while assuring him that he will get his sword after a week. When going back to his destination, he is quite giddy, planning to use the holy sword and become a magic swordsman. However, his daydream is interrupted by Arcia, who deadpans that Everil has been kidnapped. Meanwhile, at the borderline of Dragonland and the Crosan Empire, Everil is seen protected by a magical light, floating in the air. Besides her, 2 goons are standing, ready to finish her off. But the thing is, their attacks aren't even touching her because she is protected by the 8th Circle artifact. Both of the goons are quite frustrated with the situation, as they have been informed that this task would be a piece of cake. Suddenly, someone from behind tells them to attack her mind, as the defensive magic can't protect her mind. One of the goons foolishly comments that it is his first time hearing that. But they soon realize there is someone else behind them. They turn to the new person and ask him to reveal his identity. This person is none other than August, who introduces himself as the spirit user. After a while, Adrian and his crew arrive there as well, who is relieved to find Everil safe. He accuses to the Blue Moon members to be the culprits, but they explain that they are the ones who caught the real culprit. Upon asking, they tell him that Everil is resting in the cabin, as our boy has already taken safety measures to protect her. Meanwhile, Adrian is analyzing who might be behind this kidnapping, as the goons seem quite unskilled. Anyway, he turns to the Blue Moon members and asks about their reasoning for helping them. First, they make an excuse that this place is their base, and that it is just a coincidence. But when Adrian doesn't buy their answer, they claim it is their leader's order to make up for the mistakes they made by attacking Everil. To sense his confusion, Gregory explains further that their leader is quite furious and has ordered them to sever their affiliation with Francis. At that, our guy asks whether what they have done is their individual decision without the leader's order. Gregory explains that this is the case, as the leader doesn't interrupt their work without necessity. He further adds that the entire Blue Moon organization strictly prohibits harming anyone associated with Adrian. This statement leaves him quite confused about the motives of the leader, and whether he is afraid of our guy. Then they settle the matter at last and decide to leave any bad feelings towards each other in the past. Our boy asks whether their leader wants to meet with him. They confirm it by saying that he is welcome to come by any time, which makes our boy suspicious of their motives. But he shrugs off his suspicions, as he doesn't see any trace of betrayal on their expressions. Gregory then hands him their secret communication device, the terminal of which is connected to both of their devices. With that, he can communicate with them anytime. At that, they take their leave. Arcia asks whether they should follow them, but he stops her, as they have a way to communicate with them. The most important matter now concerns Everil's safety. At that moment, Everil wakes up and asks about her whereabouts. They decide to bring the church investigation team there, as the whole world has witnessed the kidnapping of Everil through the live broadcast. Meanwhile, Adrian is thinking about the mysterious leader of Blue Moon and what Gregory has said to him. He contemplates what is going to happen next.